Hey everyone, Sawmill Charlie. Getting set up here. Give me a little bit of time. Hope everybody's having a good week in the bee yard area. Hey Steve and Tom and Keith and Jack and Danette and Mike and Kimberly. And there's Matt and Stone River honeybees there out in Central Virginia. So go ahead and get the link set up here and all that. No. Hit the wrong button there almost. Come on. And it's pinned. Good. Let's see. See if I missed anybody here. Steve, are you home or are you still on the boat cruise? Oh my. Well, anyway, it's been a kind of a cool weather week, especially in the beginning. Started wearing long pants to work, and it was like 75 degrees at the high end of the day, and low humidity in the 60s and maybe high 50s or so at night, at least for the first 2 or 3 days of the week, and which was kind of nice and nice change and all that. And so that was interesting. Fall's around the corner, I'd say, more or less. And just trying to get my screen set here. And so Steve's in Seattle going to Alaska tomorrow. He sure is a world traveler. 1 minute he's in the Bahamas, and now he's out going up where the snow's at. I would think you would be tired of looking at snow up there in Alaska. Of course, I guess maybe there's their summertime up there. And all that. Hey everyone. Let's see. So anyway, that's what's been happening. I did go out earlier this week, and there comes Brad. There he is, the Cajun Homestead.
Hey, Charlie.
Down in the hot parts of Louisiana.
Well, you ain't never lied.
Anyway, what I was getting ready to tell everybody, I went and put in a new queen that I got into the dud hive. And when I checked on her, she was out, released, and she had, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches worth of fresh eggs laid. I figured, well, it was 5 days, so I figured at least, let's say 3 days in the cage since I had put her in there, and maybe 2 days been released. So at least she's showing evidence of queen or eggs compared to the other one. I didn't have any evidence of eggs whatsoever for several weeks. And then what was interesting is that, okay, the hive was, when I put her in, the hive had been queenless without that old queen for 5 days. I went in there. Now you got to remember, the old queen wasn't laying any eggs. So I'm expecting no queen cells, no emergency queen cells in this hive whatsoever, because there just wasn't any brood for them to make it out of. I pulled the metal frame right up out of there. Here I got about 5 or 6 queen cells across the face of that comb. And I'm like, I don't understand it. How do you get an egg so they can feed it royal jelly to make larvae in order to make a queen, unless there's a laying worker in there or something like that? And so I smashed all them, put the queen in, and I was closing the hive up and getting ready to leave. And I'm like, you know what? I better go in there and check both the bottom box and the middle box where all the brood area would be. Sure enough, I went back and, hey, Russell. And I did find some, I found about, I don't know, about maybe a half a dozen queen cells, like maybe one on one frame. What, I don't know whether she laid an egg there and it was so small that they try to get it or what. But anyway, I scratched all them out. Went back 5 days later. She's in there walking around, and she's got a patch of brood about 4 inches diameter on a medium frame where it was close to pollen and it was close to nectar. So they had food sources to raise that queen or those eggs and stuff like that. So I've just left her alone since then and all that. It's gotten a little bit more humid. Not that bad, but today, and they said that on the and all. So anyway, Darren, I see Darren, Pennsylvania beekeeper here, and all that. Hey, Shane, and Randy, Tar Heel beekeeper. So what are you up to, Brad? What's happening?
Today we had a Louisiana bee conference in Pineville, Louisiana. I met a couple of guys off your channel. I met Joseph Royals. He was there.
Yeah, Joey.
Mike Berry.
Yeah.
Paul from Hale Hives. And I don't know if he's listening, but I want to thank him. He bought us lunch today. He bought me and Joey lunch. And Mr. Ed was there. I met him. We had a pretty good little talk. And I met Cayman, but he was pretty busy. He gave 2 speeches. We got to say hello to him. But Mr. Ed, he gave a good little speech. It was a good speech, and it was kind of funny at the same time. It was kind of entertaining. So it was it was really nice to listen to him. I mean, he's got a, he does the no treatment and stuff like that. And he was trying to explain to people that, he does very little with his bees. He mostly just lets the bees do them. He don't do any treatments. He don't do any feed. He harvests. He works in double deeps. He just leaves, 2 deeps full of honey or brood and honey at the end of the year, and they just take care of themselves. He said he had like last year he had like 30% losses, which was kind of high. It says usually he has like 20% losses, and he replenishes those by doing splits and doing his cutouts and stuff like that. But he says he does very little work when it comes to, the way he takes care of his bees.
Well, the thing of it is, I mean, he's down there where you all live at, in that part of the United States where, you don't have any winter down there.
No winter.
And it doesn't take as much feed for the bees, I don't think, to get through the winter because of that. And then, you got like
Mr. The feed, that's opposite though. The feed, if they stay clustered, they don't use as much feed. But ours fly a lot, so they do. That's why we mostly have to go to double deeps in the winter, because like he told me today, he likes to see 60 pounds of honey on his hives for them to make it all the way through. And I've seen it with a couple of his videos, and I see it with mine. Come like when the maple starts to bloom the first in January,
right?
Our hives are almost empty. Both boxes are almost feather light. So that's when we got to start feeding early, or hope that they get a little bit of, they start getting a little bit of nectar from the maple and stuff. But yeah, they go through a lot of food. Like mine, I leave, like in my 10 frames of top brood boxes, 10 frames of fat frames of honey. And then they got honey down in the brood box also. And whenever I open them up in the spring, they are very light. I mean, very little nectar. Almost all the bottom box is empty, and the top box has a little bit of. And that's what I do. Like in January and February, I go through them and see which ones might need some sugar bricks or something like that, because if not, they'll starve out. And I did make that mistake, like in my first couple of years, thinking that, I left a lot of honey, but they were so big and they flew so much when they were, in the wintertime, they starved out. They were all stuck in the combs, face first in the combs, butt sticking
Right.
out, starved out. But this year,
So
well,
when does your flow kind of end in your area?
for us, the tallow was over in May, but like we got a lot of agriculture here, so like right now, I'm actually, when I'm pulling my friend, because I just did some mite checks and stuff, and I noticed that they have a little bit of nectar in the brood nest that they're bringing in, but I think it's coming from soybeans. It's not nothing that they're going to build comb on or anything like that, but they are bringing it in, and it's not a heavy flow because they're not like bringing it up to the top. They're just dropping it off in the brood, and they're using it up. Because the full boxes of honey that I got on top, they full from me leaving them honey. So I do see like a little bit of wet nectar in the brood nest, but they're just using it and which is good. I'm glad they planted soybeans this year, because other than that, they would start in their top box on capping, stuff like that. And before the soybeans, I didn't notice a little bit of on capping starting to happen, where they were going to start using that honey, but then it stopped.
Did you happen to check the color of the blossom on the soybeans?
No, I didn't go in the field, but they're at that stage. The soybeans are at almost knee high, and I can tell they're either blooming or they're almost finished blooming right now.
Well, around here, they usually have what's called Roundup Ready soybeans or something like that, and it's genetically modified, obviously.
Yeah.
And I've heard that there's a white bloom and then there's a purple bloom, and the purple bloom, I'll say, is maybe old style soybeans, and that's got a nectar source, and where the white bloom doesn't. And I
might because it's not very, it's like a couple of blocks down the road. I mean, it's not very far. I might stop by and check that and see.
Stop by and pull the leaves back and see whether or not they're purple blooms. That was like Jeremy out in Texas out there. He was talking about putting his hives on cotton, but there's same thing. There's a genetically modified cotton where it has the neonicotinoids in it, and then there's the old style cotton, which he was, where he was catching a flow off of that, and all that stuff and all that. So
now, Paul told me something today from Hail Hives. He said, which they just planted sugarcane like 2 miles down the road from me. For the first time in this field, he told me when they harvest the cane, the bees get a lot of nectar from the cut cane, a lot of sugar. They go in the field and he said, but it tastes like steamed syrup. It's a real thick, heavy syrup. But I was just wondering if it would be a good food source. So I'm gonna find out, because it's far down the road, and they usually cut the cane in October. So I'm kind of anxious to see if that's going to bring in any kind of nectar or anything like that.
Right. I don't know. I don't have any. I mean, I've only seen sugarcane when I went to Florida when I was a kid. And all that.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, we used to go and cut it in the field and then strip it and chew on it. Oh yeah, it was real. That was like candy back then, because we didn't go get candy in the store. We just our daddy would bring home a full cane, and we cut it up from knuckle to knuckle, and he'd strip it, and then he dice it up into little chunks, and we just chew on it.
And that's what, just the juice out of the cane is.
Yeah, just the juice. And you talking about sweet. So I imagine when the combine or whatever they used to cut it, there is going to be some stubbies of open sugar.
Oh yeah.
In the field. Now, how long it lasts, I don't know. I guess until it dries up, or because it's in October, so we're usually pretty dry in October. But
I will say, hey, Lynn, So yeah, that's that. I mean, the first time I ever seen was in Florida on the west coast of
Hmm.
Florida, and where they had that machine. Um, it cut it kind of like a or like a corn,
Yeah, like a
I guess,
corn.
and it would. So I forget how it did it, but it had these little wagons, little dump wagons,
Hmm.
and it kind of reminded me of them little wooden trains that kids used to get on them little tracks and stuff. Anyway, the dump wagon would get full, and then they would run it up this man-made incline of like a bridge hill, and then there would be a truck underneath of it, and then that thing would flip and dump the
Yeah.
cane inside of, I think, a truck with a big screen mesh sidewalls and stuff,
We
that kind of stuff.
down here they used to harvest it like the whole cane would be in. They would lay it like long ways. Now it's chopped up into little bitty pieces.
Pieces.
Yeah. It's a different method now. And they'll come there and they'll cut it all up and then they'll pile it up in one location. They get them a central location and they got another machine that just scoops it up and loads the trucks up.
Hey,
So
Ryan.
I've seen it. I had to work on a couple of boilers down south at some sugarcane mills, and you
Right.
wouldn't think something so dirty would come out so white because it's a pretty rough looking product whenever because it's drug through the dirt and everything else. But and then they crush it out, and it's brown looking. But
Mhm.
from what I asked the man, he didn't want to tell me too much about it when I was working on the boiler. But it's almost like they bleach it. Your
Oh
brown
yeah, I mean,
your
let's
brown
see.
sugar is more
Yeah,
natural to pure
yeah,
cane
it's the
sugar.
brown sugar is well, let's see. Sugar comes from sugar cane, white
Yeah,
sugar. So what they do is it's brown, and they cook it, I'll say. And the browns, when they separate it, and you have white cane sugar and then you have brown sugar, and then the byproduct of all that processing is called molasses,
yeah.
blackstrap molasses. That's where all that molasses comes from, is out of the process of making sugar, white sugar and all. So anyway, this Louisiana conference, was it a 1 or 2 day thing?
It's a 2 day. I only did 1 day. You could buy a ticket for a day, or it was like $50 for a day, or if you was spending the night. A lot of them that come, like Joey and all them, they come spend the night, so they stay for the 2 days. And I mostly went there today because I wanted to get me some Aper Guard. They had a lot of good deals on a lot of stuff. They had Man Lake, Dandit, Hilco, um, the guy that sells the Appy tablets from with Bob. He was
Oh,
there.
yeah. What's his name?
I forget his name.
Um,
Ad,
Mamet.
Ad,
Mamet.
Ahmed, yeah. Uh, they had him there. They had a lot of stuff to sell. I got my tubs of um, Apogard.
Yeah.
They were $130 plus you got 10% off for the show. So that was a good deal.
Yeah,
Because
because I think they're running right around 150 or more, aren't they?
yeah, well, he's selling like 130 something on his website right now. I
Who
don't know if
does?
it's Hilco.
Hilco?
Yeah.
Okay.
But at the show, he was offering a 10% discount. I guess because he didn't have to ship it. He usually gives free shipping, so he was giving that discount. They had Man Lake had a lot of frames. I bought me some rocket fuel piling patties that were pretty cheap, and
Mhm.
then they were also giving some frames with the triple wax foundation wooden frames. Come out to $3.10 a flame. So I found that was pretty good for triple wax. So I bought a case of those. And then the Super DMF, I got the 100 dose bag for $70, and it's usually like 100 and something.
Now, have you researched that, or what do you
I
think about it?
used it. I used it last year, and
Okay. Well,
I
what
think
did you
it
find
comes.
with it?
Huh?
What did you find with it?
Um, I had a lot of the reason I had gotten it is because last year, for some reason, a couple of my hives looked like they were getting chalk brewed, and it was late in the season. And I watched a couple of videos on the it's coming from lack of nutrition, not enough pollen coming in, and just poor nutrition in the hive. And
Mhm.
one way to help get them out of it was feed them, put a lot of sugar water on them, feed them, and then put some kind of probiotic. And so I got that last year. I got a small pack. It was like a 20 dose packet or something like that. And I used it, and the chalk brood cleared up. Now, whether it was just a probiotic or it was just feeding them the sugar water, I don't know. But I found it, the bees came out of it. I didn't lose any that had the chalk brood. So, and right now I'm kind of worried about. I just went through some hives and I got heavy mites. I mean, really, really bad. And it's all mostly in my hives that were really, really big. And now that they've condensed down, I mean, I got bearding out I mean, they're just so many bees in there. And not, as they're starting to die and get smaller, the mite count is going up. And I've been hitting them with OA, and I got the extended release pads in there, but you got them on the control first before the release pads or even hold them, a level. So I bought ApiGuard. Tomorrow I'm gonna start going through the hives, and I'm gonna do the 1/3, three times.
Oh yeah, 30 grams.
Yeah, like Mike Berry's doing. Since it's so hot down here, I'm not gonna do
Now,
that.
what's the temperature right now?
Right now we're having highs of 94. Yeah,
I would I would do more like a 25.
well, that's what I talked to him about. I said, hey, because he did his like 2 weeks ago or something like that, and he was up there around the 100-degree mark. And I said, hey, I said, how did your bees do? He said, well, he says, I was going to do the 50, but I decided to go with the 33 or whatever. He says they bearded a little bit, it ran them out the hives, but he said that wasn't no queen losses or anything like that. He said, so I'm gonna see.
Yeah.
I'm just worried because they're so bad that I need to get it down before October, before at least our golden
Well, the
rod.
oxalic acid vapor is great for the wintertime when they're almost broodless. That was
Mhm.
something I finally had to learn is that OA is great if they're in the wintertime when they're broodless or near broodless. We don't really go completely broodless, and I know you guys don't either.
No.
And I would say if it's in the 90s down there, I would say no more than if you what you really need to do, and I've been looking at this, go to Vena Pharma that makes that stuff and go to
Mhm.
their questions area. Now there's 3 pages of questions that you can read on the internet. And some of the questions I had was, okay, do you put an IPM board underneath a screen bottom? Do you close the screen bottom up, period?
Yeah.
And yes, you do. Do you keep the front entrance wide open? Yeah, you do. And it says in there, it talks about if it's over 77 degrees, you should use 25 grams in there and do that over I think, a 4-week period.
Hmm.
And, and that kind of a thing. Um, and kind of do it, put it in the evenings and stuff like that. See it what you're talking about 95 degrees. I wouldn't even consider putting it in there. I'm just not comfortable with that stuff right now.
Yeah.
And now for me here, this week's first 3 or 4 days, it was like the high was 75 and low. It was chilly enough to where you would kind of want to put a real light sweatshirt on.
Yeah.
That's how.
Yeah, we felt it down here. We had some mornings of like 68, 67, where
Mhm,
we hadn't been getting out of the 70s at night. So,
right.
and it was dry air. It wasn't humid and, real smug.
Pete here, he talked about it. I'm gonna show this. He bought some super DFM and had a little bit of chalk brewed cleaning up to do. You think it will work? I don't know. Did you have any of that, Brad?
Yeah, that's what I had. I had chalk brewed, and to me, it was either the feeding along with the probiotics, or it was just the probiotics that got them out of. Because I did both. Somebody said you need to feed your bees, get them, and put some pollen on them, and get them back nutritional again, and then put some probiotics on them, and it pulls them through. And it did. So I guess all three together, not just the probiotics would work by itself, but they got to have the nutrition.
Yeah, says DC. He uses it obviously that because of his damp winters and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've looked at it. I asked actually a rep about it, and he said, "Well, if you don't have these certain problems, he said you're just wasting your money." So luckily, he was
Yeah.
honest.
That's all I use it on. I just use it on my hives that looked like they were having problems. I didn't sprinkle it on healthy hives. I didn't see no use for that. So
Yeah, but so like I say, I've been reading up on the Vapor Guard, and I've had a tub here. I know it's outdated now. I don't know whether it really goes outdated or not. Who knows? But I like to treat early, late July into August, and
mhm.
it's 90, 95. And some of the weeks here, it's been up to 100 or 105, or at least it feels like that. So I've been doing Aprivar, which I know everybody kind of poo-pooing that now because it has possibly a resistance by the mites, which
Well, I want to
probably,
ask you something about that.
huh?
I want to ask you something about that. Today at the show, they had a man that I forget his company, but he was set up just as big as Man Lake. I think it was Myers or something, Meyer Bees or something like that.
I don't know.
But I'll have to ask Joey. He might remember his name. He had Apivar strips in the 60 pack for $140, which I thought was cheaper, not cheap, but cheaper than, because Hilco had it for $180 for the 60 pack.
Well, I got a brand new. I just got a Man Lake
I read
2024 Man Lake catalog today because I got my labels in.
Well, I read his sign, and at the bottom it said expires in November. So me and another guy looked at the actual package. It was made in 2022, November of 2022, and it said it was good for 2 years in that pack.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if that ain't some of the problem is that we're getting old.
There was remember Cayman was talking about that with Man Lake.
So I went over to Man Lake.
Life.
I went over to Man Lake
right now. 60 pack is $185.
Okay, well, I went over to the Man Lake table, and it's the same guy that comes to the Big Knobby show, and he was there, and I said, "How much is your Apivar?" And he said it's $180 or 185, whatever it was.
Yeah, well, it's $84.95. 185.
So the guy that I was talking to, he said he was asking the guy from Man Lake. He says, "Well, does it expire?" And he goes, "Oh no, it doesn't expire." And I said, "The heck it don't." I said, "That guy over there got a sign says his same package you got here is going to expire in November." He says, "Well, that's just what they put on there." And the guy I was talking to picked up the pack, and sure enough, it had the same manufacturer date. The guy at the table that's selling it for $140 November of 2022, which would put it 2 years old. And it plainly says on the pack, expired after 2 years, 24 months. And he goes, "Oh no," he goes, "it's like a lot of stuff. It won't expire until you open up the pack." And I said, "No, when you open up the pack, you're supposed to use it all, because it's not going to last once you open up the pack." But I said, this thing says expires in November. So for somebody who wants to buy it now and use it in the spring, it's out of date.
Yeah.
So if they think they're getting a deal now and they're going to use it first thing come spring, it's 6 months out of expiration. And he goes, "Oh no, it's gonna." He says, "Don't believe what you read." He says,
Bullshit.
"I'm not like there's too much questions about this Apavor not to even want a new product. If I'm going to use it,
Well, I
a new
went to
product."
Nobby this January, and that's one thing I learned when you go to Nobby in Kentucky now. Number one, Kentucky forces the vendors to charge sales tax, which is 6% sales tax
Mhm.
if you buy it there.
Yeah.
So I seen the online deals prior to January, and Foxhound Bee Supply down there with Louisiana or someplace down in there. It's in the South somewheres. That's where I got my Foxhound bee suit and all that stuff, which I like. They had Aprivar 60 packs for $130 or something like that. Actually, let me take a look. I'll tell you more about it.
I think the price has jumped up in this last year or so, because when I bought it 2 years ago, it was in the 140s.
All right, here it is. Foxhound Bee Supply. I bought two Aprivar 60 packs. They were $125.65 each.
If you buy two or just
No, I bought 2 packs because I needed more than 60 strips.
yeah.
So I bought enough for myself and the boy that helps me out, and all that. And it was $126, let's say, for a 60 pack. That's a hell of a savings.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I pre-bought it. And the last time they had Hive Life, I bought my Formic from Hilco because I think it was pretty good price, and it didn't have shipping and it didn't have taxes on it.
Yeah.
And this time around, I bought it from Hilco. Well, I got sucked in with the taxes, and I'm like, okay, I could have saved an extra, let's say $30.
Yeah.
I mean, $30 is $30. So
See,
now I've learned, check your pricing out and prepay for everything before you get the Nobby.
Well, I found it kind of weird because she didn't charge me any taxes on the Hilco when I bought the 2 tubs of Apricot. She didn't charge me any taxes on it.
Yeah, but you're down in that other state.
Okay. Yeah, she didn't charge me any taxes. I didn't notice.
Yeah.
What the
Yeah, Mike, I don't have no idea what the Amish are selling 5 gallons of honey for at all. I know that you can go to there's a honey plant up here in Pennsylvania outside of Lancaster, and you can buy 5 gallons of honey, a bucket of honey. And I'll say it was like $190 some for $5. Let's say $200 a bucket. I think. I'm not sure.
Mike was asking who was the sales rep. I don't know his name. I didn't know his name. He
Pete,
was an older fella, but
yeah. You use oxalic acid vapor and oxalic acid E. What's E? You talking about dribble or extended? Extended. Okay. Yeah, extended is fine. It only maintains. You got to remember. It maintains the mite level. It doesn't suppress.
And if your bees are on a downward trend, like they starting to reduce in numbers, like after the flow, I found this out personally because right after I pulled the honey supers, I put those pads on there, and I checked my I'm gonna take the worst hive. I had 14 mites right when I pulled the supers. Okay, I pulled the supers off, checked it, had 14 mites in my. Put the OA pads, hit them with oxalic acid 3 times because this was a seven super. Well, I did like 2 deeps and five medium box hive, okay, full of honey, covered with bees. I'm talking about from top to bottom. So I said, I'm gonna put the pads in there. When I removed all my honey pads, I hit 3 rows since I just checked them today. I shook them. Charlie, when I tell you I stopped counting at 40 mites, it was
And that's with
unbelievable.
OA with the
That was with the pads for 3 weeks and three rounds of oxalic acid. But hive went. I'm just shooting you some numbers here. Let's say the hive had 10,000 bees. It's down to 1,000 bees now because she done shut down laying. So all those bees they had in that hive are dead and gone, and all those might have congested the smaller hive. So I'm not blaming oxalic. I'm just blaming it's not the time of the year to use it because there's already so many mites in the hive that it's so there had to be so much mites in the brood. Having the pads on there and stuff didn't work. So when all that brood, because when I pulled the honey supers, oh man, she must have had like 6 frames of brood at the bottom and 8 frames of brood at the top, you know, full. I mean, she was busting at the time of the flow. And now she only has like 1.5 frames of brood because it's hot. There's nothing coming in, but I still got all these mites. And so that's what got me worried. I said, I got to do something because these bees are going to be so sick, you know, with all. So I hit, when I checked them, I stuck me a board in on where the bees walk in at on top of the inner board or the bottom board.
Right.
Just to see, so I hit him with the OA, came back 3 hours later, you know, after I finished all my hives, that bottom board was covered in mites.
In mites.
In mites.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit there, Brad. Yeah. You know, let's see. Your problem is well, yeah, it's well, you got weather issues to deal with, and it sounds like to me your honey is over with. So, that you need to start treating. I don't know. I mean, that's where, like I say, for me, my policy is from late July through August, which I don't have any honey super. And now, mid July this year, we had honey flow. Now, where it was coming from, I don't know. And normally, by the 1st of July, everything is done. And so anyway, the hives, most of them I would say all the top boxes are full of honey, except for the one hive that I put the queen in. And it does, even that has some honey in it, you know, nectar in it that they brought in themselves. And then I've got April bar strips in next Saturday, the 31st. They will be coming out. It had been in there for 6 weeks. I kind of look at it this way. All right, if Apivar has some, you know, if there's some mite resistance, okay, there's some mite resistance, but it's still killing a good percentage of them.
Yeah.
You know, and when it's 90 plus weeks worth of temperature problems, that's the only thing. That's the only option I kind of got if as far as safe for my bees.
Well, next year
September hits, I'm starting to get the cool spells now. So in the next couple of weeks, now next week is supposed to get hot. And maybe, you know, after Labor Day is when I normally put my Formic Pro in, which I like it to be 75 to 80 degrees. I'll put it in the evenings and let it off gas at nighttime when it's the coolest. And I hopefully will have a 4-day window there that's, let's say, 75 or 80 degrees. And that way, that'll be the most amount of off gassing. And then after that, it gets less and less, and it'll work out. And then after that, I'm going to I'll take that off, and then I'll start feeding. And when I start feeding this year, I do have some A tablets or Appy tablets. I'm going to throw some Appy tablets. I'm just going to see what they do, and let them stay. And after I feed, I don't never open my hives up after I start feeding. I let them get sealed up for the winter. By the October 15th is when I normally finish feeding, and after that, I don't really open my hives up. They're set for winter, and I'm gonna put the A tabs in there, let them go through the winter, and if they need them, they'll use them. Hopefully, the thymol in them will kill any mites or keep the numbers low. And then I'll use OA vapor when I have, as far as the wintertime goes. Now I know that you have still a lot of brood throughout January and December and all that.
Mhm.
But I think your temperatures are in what, the 70s during the day, maybe
Yeah.
in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'd be hitting them with I'd hit them with Formic Pro, full doses of Formic Pro, and do a 2-week treatment there. And then I would maybe after Formic, I'd go back in there and do some Apricard, some 50 grand treatments, on them big
Yeah.
hives when it's 70 degrees, 75 degrees during the day, and do that for a month.
Well, I'll tell you, if I can get all these bees through next year, I will not make the mistake of putting ads on. I'm going to go with Apivor, like I've always done in the past. Because when I would pull the supers off, while you got the boxes open, I would slip in, and it's so easy to do. Slip in those Apivor strips and let them start working on those mites, because me not putting it in this year was a big mistake.
And that's not using Aprivor.
Apivor, yeah, I usually use Apivor every year, but they all talk about the mite resistant and everything else. So I said, well, I'm gonna skip a year, go to something else to keep my bees, where I can still use, because it's so easy. But I'm seeing the results of not using a summer treatment that we can use down here, because it never harms the bees.
The thing of it is, Brad, is what I do works for me, but it's not going to work for you, because you're in a hot area environment at a longer amount of that heat. And you're kind of like stuck in a longer period of time of severe, 95 to 100-degree weather all the time. And I think Aprivor is the only thing that you got to work with when it comes to that kind of heat. But then I think what you need to do is develop a plan that you need, a program, a mite treatment program. Like you said, all these hot times and your honey supers are off, you do Aprivor because it's 95 to 100 degrees. And then when you get into where it's the middle of our winter, which is like mild for you, weather-wise, heat-wise, I'd be doing Apricard. If it's 75 degrees, I'd throw some 50-gram doses on there every 2 weeks for a month. And that's a full treatment for that on your big hives. And do that. And then I would wait a little bit, and then I would throw Formic Pro on there.
Well,
and
what I had been doing in the past was working. I just screwed it up by not sticking to it, because I usually use the Apivor.
Mm-hmm.
And when come October and November, I check my bees. I might have like one mite, zeros, stuff like that. And so I just keep on with some oxalic acid throughout the winter. And come springtime, I'm still at like one mite, 0, 2.
Well, that's where the extended release oxalic acid comes in. The thing of it is, you got to keep it suppressed, and then you can use that kind of stuff that continues to keep it suppressed.
Yeah. So when I checked them 3 weeks ago, because I didn't put no Apivor in honey supers, I put those in, and I said, oh, well, wherever they're at is going to maintain them. Well, it didn't. because the hive started to shrink and when I checked them 3 weeks, it was at 14. Some of the hives were at 4. That was the worst hives, 14 mites. Okay, I had some 4s and some 3s and stuff like that, and like 3 weeks later, after treating with OA and the pads and had 40 mites in this same hive, I said, "Oh my God!" I said, "I done screwed myself, not keeping my regular treatment in there, and sticking to what was working."
Right.
So now I got to fight tooth and nail to get back to where I was at.
Yeah, yeah. Now
And
you can knock them back and all. Let me
yeah,
answer a couple questions here. I know Mike, Minnesota Mike, he's talking about OA dribble. It is used around here at other different clubs in the wintertime. They'll go in December and they will dribble, 2 grams or whatever it is, cc's or whatever, down the seams of the bees and all that. And they seem to have good luck with that. I think I tried it years ago. I still like my vapor. To me, it gets it everywhere in the hive. And that kind of thing. And you can get the recipe off of Randy Oliver's thing, I believe it is, Mike. And
for the dribble or the pads,
for the dribble and for the pads too.
pads,
Laura that comes on here, she's done the extended pads. It's basically let's say 1 cup of glycerin, 1
vegetable
cup
glycerin.
of OA, or 1
It's a
pound of glycerin and 1 pound of OA.
it's a 50-50 mix.
It's a 50-50 mix, and I think she said you heat the glycerin up to 160 degrees, I think.
Yeah, you can tell because I did it, and if you just constantly just put it on a very low heat and you stir it, it goes from a white cloudy mixture to crystal clear.
Yeah, that's when you want it. Yeah.
It'll look like water, then you know you finished. And I can tell you, like, if you use 30 Swedish pads, because this is what I did this year, 30 Swedish pads cut in half in a container. It takes, I did it with grams, 800 grams of oxalic acid and 800 grams of vegetable glycerin, pretty well soaked up all those 30 pads really, really well. So I didn't have to like add any more.
I've got all that supplies. I just haven't, I just never have got around to do it, to be quite honest with you. Now, Mike says here, dribble is more of a longer treatment, but yes, the InstaVap is a helpful beast. I don't know whether dribble is really any more of a longer treatment. I mean, I really don't know about that part of it.
I did hear someone say you can burn with dribble. If you do it too strong and you make mistakes when you dribble it in between the brood and the brood actually gets wet, it will actually burn the brood.
Yeah, and I think you'll burn some bees if it's a little bit, in Randy's thing, there are different, there's a low, a medium, and a high dose as far as how much acid you put in there. Now, okay. Ryan Peabody's apiary, he lives south of me a couple of hours, I think. He does, let's see, he uses Aprivar on Valentine's Day, which is what, in February. And Aprigard after the honey pool. I have to talk to him about that, on how he gets that done with the heat we got. And then OA in December and January at 45 degrees. I start in like November with OAV, and I do it at 45 degrees, and I try to do it at least once or twice a month all the way up through February.
I tried the ones that didn't have my models in, well, all the ones that did brood birds, and I made my new queens. I went to those because whenever I made my splits, I let them go 7 days without a queen, made them hopelessly queenless, went in there, destroyed all the queen cells. Then I added my my queen cell. Mm-hmm. So by the time my queen hatched, came back mated, everything was busted open. All the brood that was in there had done hatched. I hit them with oxalic acid, and I was pulling zeros and one times.
because all the royal mites were exposed.
Everything exposed.
That's right.
All
And
these
that,
hives
and
that
it's just
had
like with
brood.
me, I kept thinking that I could hit them with OA like everybody thinks about it when it's brood has plenty, it has, brood frames in there, cat
Mhm.
brood, and it doesn't work. If you can hit them with, if you can get a 95% kill if you have the most minimal amount of brood in there, cat brood, and it really does work much better. And once I wrap my head around that, things have gotten better.
I
A
think
couple more questions.
go ahead.
Stone River Bees. He wants to know what I do um, for next spring. How many hives, production, and nukes, and honey golds, and requeening, and or any other plans. All right. Uh, I'm at my goal as far as honey production hives are right where I'm at right now, 16 hives. I made that decision this year when I had a bunch of losses. And far as production and as far as nukes, because I what I did was that because I was selling nukes, and that's how I kind of, when I got into it, Michael Palmer talked about, nukes and sustainability, and the mighty nuke, is the way to go. It's basically old ideas brought new again. And that's been 10, 15 years ago. Everybody's kind of got on that wagon right now as far as your nukes as your insurance hives, resource hives, and things of that nature. And learn. And I tell people all the time, I says a 5 frame nuke. What a great way to start a brand new package of bees, or any kind of, you want them to draw wax out on foundation, put it in a nuke. Nukes, you manipulate the bees to where they focus on 5 frames. When those 5 frames draw out, put another 5 frames on top, and they'll move straight up because that you're using their natural uh, ways of managing themselves. And but anyway, back to the nukes. I don't have no more than 12 nukes now. I used to have my operation used to be as high as 24 nukes and 10 honey hives. And I had one little out yard I was managing for a guy. When he passed away, I said, okay, I need his honey. So I went from 24 nukes down to 20 nukes, and I increased my honey hives to 12 honey hives. And then the last several years, it's been very difficult, stressful for me in order to um, make sure that I have bees for people, nukes, and sell them and all. And yeah, it's a quick turnaround money. And I've gotten better at it as far as, how to manipulate them, put them in the boxes. But you still got to deal with the public. They're new. A lot of them are. They don't understand the urgency of getting these bees from that cardboard box to a hive before they melt if it's getting too hot in that box, things like that. And
Were you taking like orders way ahead of time
yeah,
for your nukes?
and that was another thing that I just realized I never thought about it, is that, you know what? When you take them ahead of time, then you're responsible to, let's say you need 10 nukes or 15
Hmm.
nukes. You better darn sight have 15 nukes come April, come springtime.
Yeah,
And
that's the only thing I'm scared of.
a lot of stressful pressure. It isn't like, well, I got a couple extra sitting here. Hey, do you want one? Okay, here it is. Give me the money. Here's the bees. So I made a decision to kind of reduce my stress load. Honey sales are good, and they've been increasing the last couple of years because a guy up the road here went out of business, and he's pointing all of his customers to me.
Hmm.
So I said, after I was going to increase to 14 nukes or 14 honey hives this year and reduce my nuke load down. And got to thinking about it, and I had all these different problems with the nukes and with not so much the nukes this year, but with my honey hives and queens. And I haven't been making any queens for the last 3 years. So I really like that, and making queens. So what I did was I decided to say, okay, I'm going to go to um, 16 honey hives, and reduce. And then I have enough rack space for 12 nukes. Well, right now I got 11 because one of them failed and I combined. And I said, that's fine too. Now I got a spot for my cell builder. So, and then I'm not promising or advertising any nukes for sale, pre-sale type of thing. And I said, hey, I don't have to worry about, hey, let's say 2 more nukes die, by spring. No problem. They just died,
Yeah.
and I don't have to worry about saying, hey, I need 2 more nukes to cover my bases on sales and stuff. So I'm more or less going out of the nuke business. As far as if I do have some nukes in the early, April, and somebody calls me up, one of my friends, and said, hey, you got a spare nuke you can sell me? And I do, then I'll sell one. But that's a lot less stress.
Well, I had to change the way I wanted to do it because I was trying to sell nukes like you do, like early in the spring or whatnot. But the only thing around here, there's so much competition because we got these big bee farms that sell hundreds of nukes, come April and May, that they sell them really cheap and they don't really pay for you to fight them or the stress you have to do of making nukes and like you said, taking orders ahead of time. So that's why I changed to the raising these new queens in June and July and selling overwintered queens, because now I'm putting out my nukes 6 to 8 weeks before they're selling their spring nukes, because they start out, they do their splits and they put a sale. They got to wait for it to come back mated and everything else. So they're in April and May. I'm in March, the full hot ready sale, and I didn't take any pre-orders. At the beginning of March, I went through all my nukes that I had, and I seen who was laying good, because we start building up at the end of January when the red maple starts.
Different story down there. Yeah,
they start bringing pollen, and she starts laying. So I can tell which queens through winter and which ones are laying good.
Yeah.
All the customers that I had nice patterns of queens, brood laid, and so come March, I just put it on Facebook and the marketplace. I said, hey, I got overwintered nukes ready to make honey this year, and all kind of people. If I had more hops, I could have sold. I had people calling me up at March, hey man, give me one of those nukes. They're not ready till the end of the day. They say don't make money off of the first year. And so I called up a couple of guys that they already want me to have nukes for next year. I said, look, I'm not taking orders. I said, I'm going to assess my bees in March, the beginning of March 1st, see where they're at, and then I'll call you up if I got them. But I'm not taking orders because anything could happen. With bees. So, and I said, well, how are the bees doing? Oh, they said, man, we got 1 super, 2 supers off these nukes, because when I gave them bees in March, way ahead of the spring flow, they already had 3 frames of brood, 2 frames or a frame of honey and a frame of pollen. So they was ready to go into a 10-frame box.
Right.
And so,
well, see, that's the same thing with me. I give them 3 frames a lot of times, open and cap brood, and I said, look, these nukes are busting the seams right now, and you need to get your butt in gear and get here before they get into the trees. And they don't get that. A lot of folks are like, well, I got my time schedule here and this and that, and I'm getting aggravated at them. And it's like, guys, I got, and about that time, I know I'm getting a phone call to go to Georgia to pick up a truckload of bees with a friend of mine to help him drive. And I'm like, I need to get these things out of here so I can go down the road and, to Georgia and, and all that kind of stuff,
Another trick I did, first of all, I tell them, because when I'm ready to sell them, they're already in nukes. So whenever somebody says they want them, I just go the night before and put them in the boxes that I'm going to sell them in.
Yeah.
I find a queen, I cage her, because it's her bees. I ain't got to worry about her getting damaged on the travel. And whenever they call me for nukes, I say, they say, how long can I keep them? I said, as soon as you get out the truck, you need to put them in a hive.
Absolutely.
So if you
I had a
can't
guy
do that, don't
here.
come get them. A
Yeah,
man was
I had a
telling me
guy.
he wanted 5 nukes. He says, how long can I keep them in those nuke boxes? I said, if you can't take them out the nuke boxes, when you come get them that day, don't come get them.
That's right.
I'm not going to spend the time
That's
putting them in the
and
box.
that and right there is exactly what I'm up against because I
Yeah.
had one guy come in here. It was 6 o'clock in the evening, and he had an hour and a half before dark, because it was getting lighter in the spring.
Mhm.
And he said, well, I want to leave them in these boxes here, these transport boxes until maybe tomorrow when I come home from work. And I says, if they die, don't come back to me.
Yeah.
I said, you got an hour and a half. You get your butt in gear and you get them either on top of the hive with the door open so they can get out and cool themselves. Or I said, what's 5 minutes? Pull the 5 frames out, put my 5 frames in and close the hive up and you're done.
Yep.
And put the box, maybe shake it out. And if there's still some stragglers, put them, in the front of the hive so they'll fly up into the hive. I mean, what is the problem with that? And you get that lackadaisy attitude from these people,
Mhm.
whether they're experienced or not. And it's like, it just aggravates me to death. I said, I put a lot of work into these hives, a lot of money into them to make them top notch. And
Yeah.
you just want to throw them away.
One of the men that came get 5 nukes from me, well, he came later when he could get them. Because I told him, I said, look, 5 nukes is a lot of money for you to leave in these boxes. They swarm. Because I said, if you leave them in these boxes, they're going to swarm. For
Yeah,
one thing, because they're too
yeah,
full. I said,
exactly.
you're going to lose your overwinter queen, and you're going to be back to the beginning wanting to get queens from me because you ain't got a queen. I said, do not come get these bees, or do not tell me you're going to get these bees if you can take them out these boxes.
That's right.
So he waited a week when he was available, and he said, okay, I'm ready to. I said, good, I'll go make them up for you tonight. You come get them tomorrow. But I explained to him, if you cannot, when you get home, put them in a hive, don't come get them because I'm not going to eat. Because I could take that 5-frame nuke that's ready to make honey and make honey with them.
Yeah.
Or split them, because that's a loss for me if I got to repay these people their money plus lose the bees.
Once you take them and they're your bees,
Yeah.
I did have a couple years ago. I reworked my way of all right, you're talking about like you cage the queen.
Yeah.
I'll go into that hive, and of course it's hot, and you got to watch about ventilation and all that. So what I learned was that I found the queen on the frame. All right, I've got a box here on the side. All right, I make the nuke up 3 frames of brood with the queen in there, food and pollen. That's box off to the side. Then I put a queen excluder on the top of that nuke, and I put the box up on top. All right, now the bees can go up and down and equalize themselves out. The queen can't, she's sequestered up in that top box. She can't go nowhere. So you don't have to look for her. She's up there. She's walking around. She's laying. She's having, no problems whatsoever. And then I'll go out there 10 minutes before they show up, or at least when they're supposed to show up. I'll take that top box off. I'll pull I usually like to spot her, make sure when I put her in a cardboard box or whatever, or a pro nuke, there she is. She's on there. I know she's on there, and I know she's not, dead or anything. And put all them frames in there. And 10 minutes later, I strap it down so the thing don't fall apart or the lid doesn't open up. I said, there's your nuke. Queen is in there. There you go. Please take it home right now and put it in the hive. I didn't do that on 2 years ago, and I lost. Some hives, they got too hot because I put too many bees in there, and they basically melted and died. I said, okay, that was my problem, inexperience or whatever, and I replaced them. I said some of them I replaced that year. Some of them they said, well, I don't need them right now. I said, fine, I'll give you a box of bees next year.
I don't really shake any bees in them because when I pull them out, because like I said, I'm in 6 6 frame nukes with one over the other. So I got 12 frames to choose from. I just find heavy loaded frames with brood and bees, and all they I'm not gonna shake anymore. I put all that in because do get hot if you load them. But if you give them 3 full frames of brood, they're gonna have a lot of bees.
Mhm.
So I had one. The reason I started caging my queens, I had a man that came by 3 one time, and he was in a regular pickup truck, open bed and stuff. He put down the tailgate, and I said, okay. I said, your queen is marked. I marked her last night because he wanted her marked. I said, everything's good. She's in there. He grabs those boxes and just slings them in the back of that truck. I'm there like, gee whiz. I said, be careful. I said, if you wrap those frames, you might just pinch your queen. And sure enough, when he got home, I don't know if that happened when he did, or he killed it when he put him in the hive, but I could tell the person. He's calling me up like a week later. Hey man, I can't find the queen in his hive. I said, I'm telling you, I marked out all 3 queens and they were in the hives. I said, you sure you didn't kill her? He said, oh no, you just gave me a hive with no queen. I said, no, that's not. I said, look, I'm not going to argue with you. You can come get another queen. I'll give you one, but I said, I'm promising you, I put you a queen in there because I make sure I mark them and I make sure I see them before I did. Ever since then, I caged the queen, put them in a cage, put them in between the hives, in between the frame, and I tell them, I said, your queen's in the cage, in the middle frame. I said, release them after you put them all in the box. Release the queen last. After the bees go down, just release her. I said, just be very careful.
That's a good idea. I never really thought about it that way, where you would cage her, and you don't, all you got to do is release her because she's part of that hive.
Yeah, I said, I tell them to let the hive calm down for about 30 minutes after they put them in the box, just in case they don't take it out on the queen for, don't know how they're going to handle the frames or whatnot. I said, then go and release her. I said, it's her bees. They're going to accept her. You ain't got to worry about can or anything like that. That's her bees.
Hey, Jeff, good to see you tonight. Yeah, that's a good idea. I never thought about that. But anyway, that's my plans. I know that I think it was Struttenbuck wanted to know that. And let's see. Shane wanted to know, Charlie, when you graft or when you put grafts in your finisher, aren't not a lot of cells on the bar? Will they fill the frame with comb normally? All right. I had that problem where you got webbing in between the cells between here. And what I found is I have the JZBZ cell cup holders, the plastic bars. I like them because they're easy to get the cells disengaged. If you use the wood, you got to take a razor blade knife to kind of cut the wax and to get the plastic cups off. And I found this. You go in there, you graft, you put the cells in your cell builder, whether it be a queenless cell builder or what do you call it? A queen right starter finisher, either way, the different ones that you can use. And the day I graft, that's for me, this is something, and a lot of people, they talk about day 9 and all this kind of stuff. Look, when the egg is laid until it hatches, it's 3 days. I don't care about those first 3 days. We want to find a hatched egg, which is, and a 12-hour old larvae or less. That's what we're looking for. So we find the way to do all that. I found the best way to do it is you go into that hive, you look for a brood frame, you look for jelly down in the cups. You see the jelly, but you can't see the larvae. If you do see a larvae, I mean, it's so, sometimes my eyes are pretty sharp where I can see a speck. Can't make out it's a larvae. If you can see the ribs on a larvae, they're too old. If you really can't, if you really can't see any larvae in that jelly, that's the one that you want to put in your cups. Because when you put your magnification unit on your glasses, I got these glasses right here, which are my computer glasses. Sometimes they call them reading glasses. I put my 10x 1.5 10x magnification unit over top of these.
Is that the
Then,
one with the light?
huh?
Is that
It's
the one
got
with?
a light in the top, but that light is it's poor. Get yourself a little $5 LED flashlight. It's about 3 inches long or 4 inches long, you know.
Mhm.
That way you can take that light and shine it, and you can see the glistening of the light off of the larvae down in that hole, especially. And then I use my Chinese grafting tool to go down there and scoop up. You're scooping up the jelly that happens to have a 12-hour or less larvae sitting on top of it. And then you take and put it in the cups, scoot it off and put it in the cups. And, I mean, other things you can do, I take a hand towel, put some water on it. I put it in the microwave, heat it up for 30 seconds where it's warm, not hot. And you keep marking where you left off putting a larvae in a cup, cell cup. All right. So I normally put, let's say 30 cells in, I'm figuring I'm going to get a third of, 2/3 of them, maybe. Let's say 80% success rate, 90% would be nice. And I put that in the cell builder, which, all right, let's say it's a queenless nuke, 5-frame nuke. I mean, you don't need a great big hive. You just need lots and lots and lots and lots of bees, nurse bees in there. And I put that in there, and I used to wait in 6 days, counting the day you put it in, that's day one. 5 days later, which is day 6, those cells will be capped. Now you can go 12 let's see, it's another 6 or 7 more days. I can't remember right off the top of my head right now after that. But if you let them go to maturity where you're within a day and a half to 2 days before the queen emerges, usually I take them out. You used to take them out of there 2 days before the queen emerges. And then I would take that cell and then put it in a 2-frame mating box. And of course, the cell will hatch out in a day and a half to 2 days, and you got a virgin in there. Problem of it is, all that time it sat in there, they're putting all this darn burr comb in between the cells. Then you got to take a razor blade and gently saw that burr comb away, and then you'll tear a cell that was probably a beautiful cell, a beautiful queen, and it's lost, and all that work is lost. There goes your percentages down, 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 down. So I said, this is total BS for me. So I took, you can look at my videos. I took a refrigerator, the bottom half of the refrigerator, took all the shelving out. That's where I put my buckets of honey in there, put a heat lamp in there, and keep my buckets warm so they don't, so I can pour them into my bottling tank. They don't, it keeps them from crystallizing and all that stuff. Now in the summertime, I don't have my heat, my buckets are in the bottom. So I have a refrigerator with a freezer up top. That's my incubator. Same concept. I've got a heat lamp in there with a Inkbird thermostat in there. I've got about a 4-inch little round freestanding fan. It was designed to put on somebody's desk, I guess, blow air in your face to make you feel good. So that's blowing, that's circulating the air. And then I had a little tray, a little Tupperware tray. It's where you go to the store and you buy lunch meat. It's already pre-sliced, and you get, 20 slices of let's say ham or something in there.
Yeah.
Clean that out. It'll hold 16 ounces of water, basically a Coke bottle full of water. You go in there, I take a Coke bottle, really, and I pour the water in there. So now you got humidity. You got the fan blowing the air around to pick up the water into the air and keep it equalized as far as not having hot spots wherever it may be. And then you got the lamp in there to keep it at, you wanted it at 92 degrees and 92, 93. And I take that queen grafting frame. I used to hang it inside of a little nuke box, and I used to have a medium frame so it would fit in that freezer. Now I used to go in there and incubate the cells to where they were 2 days before they hatch, and then put the cells in the two-framed mating box, which you can still do. Then, then here comes curiosity and tinkeritis, as they say. You want to go out there, oh, that queen should be out of that cell, and I got to sit there and look for her, and she's a virgin, and you're sitting there looking and looking and looking and all that. And then sometimes they tell me that you upset the other bees and they might kill her.
Yeah.
So I said, to alleviate that problem, a human problem, I said, I'm going to let my queens hatch out in the incubator, in the cages, queen cages. And then I know that, hey, there's a queen. I know I got a virgin, So what I did is I got this from Duck River Honey from Nathan. There is from Amazon, there is a test tube holder. I think it's a 40 millimeter test tube. It's enough that you can put those hair roller cages down in. There's enough spots. I think you can put 40 in that thing, in that tray, but it's a little plastic tray. You put your hair roller cages in. Let's say you've got, I don't know. Let's say 25 out of the 30 were capped because you didn't have, 5 of them weren't accepted by the nurse bees. You put them in there. I space them out to where the air gets all around them. And I take off the JZBZ cup and put that in right in top of the hair roller cage. And usually there might be a little bit of wax. So you can go in there and the wax will kind of hold them in place. And then, what days are within a day and a half of when those things, and I go down there 2 or 3 times a day. And either in the morning and then the evening, and then there'll be, a queen will come out of there. And then I'll take that cup out and I'll squeeze that cup. I'll look in the top of it. Yeah, you can see a spot of jelly. So she had more jelly than she could eat. So she had plenty of nutrition. I take and tear off the cup because she'll want to go back up there. She'll get stuck and she'll die. So then put the plug back in. And I might take some like crystallized honey. I'll keep a little bottle of that, like in a bear. Take my finger and just put a little bit on the bottom down there, maybe a little bit of water. If I can't get her out into the 2-frame mating boxes right away, let's say it's lunchtime, I'm still at work. I'll have to wait till that evening, 4 hours later. So I'll feed them, keep them in that incubator, and then I'll take them out there. And some people say, oh, I never had any luck with this, but I take and walk them in. I just let them walk in right out of that cage, right into the hive as a virgin. Have any smell. They don't have the pheromone yet because they're not mated yet.
Yeah, I would. What I did this year, because I had some that hatched out on me. I did it both ways. I did it with introducing the cells or the virgins. I just pulled my frame out. I found, because when I started my little nukes, I had 1 frame of brood and a frame of honey. Well, I just found the frame that had the brood on it. I took the virgin queen, just laid the cage. I laid the frame on its side, laid her on the brood. And I just let her walk out the little cage. And you could tell right away if they start feeding her, giving her something, that's it. You can put her in there and let her go.
You're gold. You're good.
Yeah.
And you let her walk in, like you say, right? I take the top off of my mating boxes, let her walk on the frame and down in there. And you can, they don't seem to pay much attention to her. Hey, Pastor Larry. And cover them back up. Now you got to feed that little hive with a juice can. And I have a little pint jar, and I put a cover over top of it. You'll see that on when I turn on the feed when I come in for the live chat. It keeps the heat off of the juice, and I use uh let's see, the feed from Manlake, I forget what it's called, Pro Sweet, because they can't smell it, so you don't have any robbing problems.
Yeah.
And so anyway, like I say, leave them in there, and you write down the date and come back in 2 weeks, and then she'll be mated and she'll be up and laying within the 2 week period. And I find that works just fine with me.
I released a bunch of them this year, and like I said, I was watching them on the frame, and I released this queen, and she came out, and there was a couple other bees around her, checking her out and stuff like that. And they weren't paying her no mind. And this one bee came from like the middle of the frame and charged right at her, jumped on her back, and started to sting her.
Here.
And so I moved the bee out the way. He would, or she would follow that queen all around and trying to sting. And the only one, the others wouldn't pay her no mind. I ended up grabbing that bee and pinching it and throwing it away. And it was like the only aggressive bee in the hive that I could tell. Because that queen walked around there after I pinched that one bee off, and none of the other bees paid any attention to her. Yeah. But I don't know what it did to one bee to want to come over there. And as soon as he got to that queen, or she got to that queen, just started trying to sting her in the back, got on top of her back. And I'm like, look at this.
Yeah.
But I think
Shane, Shane, when I was transporting cells out to the bee yard, which is, right outside the house or not too far, I use an egg carton too. I found that to be a very easy way of transporting cells.
Oh, the cells.
I tell you, cells and when you're bringing in larvae to graft and stuff like that, I don't shake. I take and brush the bees off, because you don't want to shake that egg. The egg will slide to the side, and it's harder to get out of it. But anyway, I drape that frame with a hand towel that you would use in your bathroom or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a regular towel, but just smaller.
Yeah,
and keep the bees off of it. As far as it being, you got to keep it warm and all that stuff. They're a little more resilient and tough, more tough than what you think.
Have you ever used the German grafting tool with the hook?
I'm not that good.
I have one, but I couldn't get the hang of that thing. And it's just the larvae hanging there. There's no jelly, no nothing. Like, it's very dry to me. So I didn't have very much success. I did one row with it and had like one or two that they took.
Yeah.
And I just gave it up. I mean, I just went back
to they used to tell me, grafting is so hard and this and that and eyesight and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I come to the conclusion they don't want you grafting because they want you to sell you bees.
Yeah.
Or queens. And I found, the Chinese grafting tool, the one thing I went down here in 2019, they had the guy, he's out in Kentucky. He was at Hive Life too. He's a queen breeder out there. And he puts on a little demonstration thing once a year out that way. Kent Williams, that's who it was.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And Kent showed us where you take your thumb nail, and let's say this pin here is a grafting tool, and you come straight down with that the reed on the end of the grafting tool. And if that reed's thin enough, it'll sit there and bend across your thumbnail real easy and gentle like. And he said, if it does that, that reads just right. Now, if it's so darn hard, it's like you're trying to drive a nail into your knee, nail into your
pokes through the wax.
Yeah, it'll poke through the wax or whatever. That's the one you need to take that tool apart and back drag that horn or whatever that stuff is made out of with some really like a thousand grit sandpaper. And just back drag it to where it thins it out, so it'll be a little bit more flexible, and everything is fine.
I hate when I'm grafting, and you got one scooped up, and you go to pull it out, and it flicks. it flicks off you catch the side of the sail or something. That little bamboo just throws it up in the air. You got like, well, there goes my graphs. So you got to do. But I
Well,
love
with
it.
mine, I find it. I go right straight down the side wall and let that reed slide across the bottom and hit the other wall. And then it's on there. And then I bring it back out and bring it right straight back up.
Yeah,
And
I was doing it too quick at first because you try to go too fast, like backing it out, and you catch the side of that sail wall. But once I slowed down, I got a better hang of it.
so anyway, I bring it back up, and the jelly's on, and the larvae is on the tip of it. Now, what I do is in reverse in the JZBZ cup, I'll set that tip right kind of in the center, or maybe 2/3 across the center of that cup, and I'll start dragging it backwards like I'm picking it up. And I'm dragging it, and I take my other finger and pushing the plunger. I'm pushing the plunger down as I'm dragging it back and bringing it up at the same time. And it just kind of scoots it off right there in the center of that. You get enough practice, it'll scoot it off right dead center of that cup.
Yeah.
Close to it. And then the biggest key thing is that if you'll feed that hive that's a donator hive, and they're putting a lot of jelly in there, it makes it so much easier if there's plenty of jelly. Hey, Brad. And all that. Can't join the live stream right now. Okay. Well, hopefully you can come in a little later. But having plenty of jelly. Now, that's the thing. At the end of the grafting season, you have less and less jelly. It makes it harder and harder to get them to be able to get a higher rate of acceptance. And then, like I say, I put those cells in that cell builder for 6 days. And I take them out and I put them in my incubator. I put the cells in those cups. And there's that new product out, easy peasy. Same concept. You're just paying, if you don't have a setup yet, that would be a nice setup to go ahead and buy. And all
Talking about the one with the white cages that clip on
they're kind of square or rectangular looking.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't have any, I have all the other older style stuff. I'm not going to spend another $60 some, type of thing. So, so that's how I do my grafting and stuff like that. I was thinking about, in the cell builder, I put the frame in, and something I learned from another club where I have some Man Lake Ultra Bee powder, I keep it in a little one of them little tubs that it used to come in. I have a 50-pound bag of it, but I put the contents in a couple 5-gallon buckets, and it keeps the mice getting into it. It keeps it fresh. So anyway, I scoop up maybe a soup can or that's 3/4 full of it. And see, how do I do that? Can't think of the container I put it in. I think it's a little bowl. Put that in there, and then I pour some Ultra Pro Sweet or some sugar water in there, and I make a slurry. I make it and I use a little hand mixer. I have been. They get burned up after a while, and you go to a thrift store and see if you can find some a handheld mixing, like for cake mixer, and sit there and mix it up and get it to where it's a little thicker than pancake batter or kind of like cake batter. And then I take it and I put it in a little Tupperware thing. Yeah, that's what I do. I mix it in my mother had some old Tupperware pint jar things that are made out of plastic that you used to can peas in or something like that for the wintertime. You put them in the freezer. Well, anyway, take that out there, and I take a spoon or a fork a lot of times, and I'll get a big a wad on it, and I'll drizzle it across the top of the frame. Hey, Jack. And drizzle it across the
Hey,
frame,
gentlemen.
up and down the frame, as extra pollen sub, along with the pollen frame on one side and a nectar frame, not a honey frame, an open nectar frame. So I found the bees will go up there. They like the sugar water in the pollen sub. They like eating the pollen sub. And they're like a bunch of little pigs all lined up along the front edge. They're sucking it down with
Yeah.
their Vasca and everything. And then they're utilizing it about developing, you're charging them up to make rule jelly. They got plenty of food. You want to give them more food than they can ever possibly use, and you'll get great amounts of rule jelly and stuff. So how's Jack up in New Jersey there? I've been watching some of your videos.
It's been busy. I think it's feeding time. You know what? I've been watching you guys, and I wanted to jump in and ask a question. So, you guys mark queens, right? I know that. But so, do you see any difference? Because I just noticed this today, right? I went out in a nuke that requeened itself, and I grabbed the queen. She's perfectly fine on the frames. Everybody's accepting her. She's walking all around. And I grab her and I put a mark on her. I green mark her. And all of a sudden I let her go and I put her back on the frame and she's like a new queen. They're all over her again and like re-accepting her. You guys ever experienced anything like that?
Yeah, the mark has got acetone in there and she smells different.
Yes.
I find it's better.
There's a possibility that they're. Go ahead, Brad. Sorry.
I find it's better if you cage them for like 5 minutes, let it dry. I even watched a guy who raises queens, and he said he didn't like stick because he sells queens, but usually after he marks them, he puts them in a cage to sell. But if you're putting them back in the hive, he's had it to where there's a certain percentage of the bees that will actually kill the queen if they don't like that smell of that marker.
Yes.
So in his good hives, he was caging his queen for 5 minutes with her on top of the hives to let them back used to her again. Because if you just mark her and throw in the hive with that wet paint, there is a percentage of bees that will ball her and kill her.
Man, I've been wondering about that.
Well, last year I marked about 4 or 5 queens right on these hives right behind me. Guess what? I needed 4 or 5 queens because I had issues with that. Now, another thing, and I talked to what is his name? His last name's England, but what's his first name? Up in New Jersey. He's up there where you are.
Yeah.
Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin England. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And he was stating, he marked the queen and it freaking died. And I'm like, yeah, I had the same problem.
Yes.
I parked my truck in front of these hives right here behind me. And it was later in the fall, or I'll say, or not fall, but late, where the sun was going down over here and it's shining in, right? I took my paint marker and I threw it in on the truck seat. Well, sun's heating where the sun rays are coming in on that truck seat. I had a beautiful, big, fat mama queen doing great. I put a mark on her, and within 30 seconds, she was deader than 4 o'clock.
Yes.
The heat?
Because the ink was hot. The pen was warm to touch. So now the pink is like putting boiling oil on her and it killed her.
Yeah.
And I told him, he was saying, I don't know why this and that. And I told him that whole story. And he was saying, man, that's very interesting.
I was wondering.
After that, it's like I'm always on the opposite side of where the sun is, and I always cover all that stuff up from the sun.
Yeah, and you know what, Charlie, what was great watching what's her name down in Bob Bininy's, right? She put the marker on the side.
You're talking about
You know what I'm talking about?
yeah,
Yeah. It
oh,
was on the. She rolled it on the side of the marker and not on the tip. Um, yeah, you know exactly what I'm
you mean
talking about.
Selena?
Selena, yes, yep,
Is she,
yeah.
what did you observe her do?
She pulled the marker off her mouth, put the
Yeah.
cap in her mouth, put the bee on the side, and rolled the marker on the side, not on the tip. She rolled it on the side, put the marker back in her mouth, and boom, totally released. It was such a smooth action.
Oh yeah. I think she was able to take the top off with one hand and hold it and all that and do the beat work all at one time.
Like, yeah, yep, yeah, yeah. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do that all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do it all day long. So I thought that it was maybe the smell from my fingers, or not, but it's from the marker. You think?
Yeah.
Why did they kill the queen?
No, I hope they didn't kill the queen, but I waited I waited 2 minutes. I let her walk around the frame, and then I put it back inside, and hopefully they didn't kill her. I'll check tomorrow.
I've marked them where I've used the that one-handed queen cage thing, the guillotine machine.
Yeah, the decapitator.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I don't never use it that way. I always let them walk into that thing and then try to close them. I got to watch them real close. And I like where I can pull it, push that up, and get them lined up for that thing. And I can just sit there and do a little bullseye circle on them, and that works fine. And I'll leave them in that thing and I'll cover that thing up with a hand towel and make sure, and then come back and, like you say, 5 minutes or so, and she's nice and dry.
Yeah, it don't take too long to dry.
And all that. And like I said, last year before, I had all them issues with the queens and marking them. The ones I marked, I had everything was just fine and dandy until I marked them, and then everything went to hell in a handbasket.
you know what?
And after that, you know what? I don't mark queens anymore.
I'm always
Hey, Paul.
argument against myself whether and when I go into a hive and I do an inspection and I find the queen and she's not marked, should I mark her? Because everything's beautiful, everything's harmonic, and then when I mark her, it all goes to hell.
Yeah, strut and buck. Yeah, we're pretty much using Posco. I've got some of Bob Walker's pins. I just haven't used them. But I don't know. I mean, anymore. If I see eggs and larvae and cat brood, all three stages, all right, that's good enough. That's as far as I need to go.
Yep.
When I get frustrated is when I'm trying to find a queen because I'm selling a nuke, which I don't really have to worry about that too much. This coming Tuesday, I got the bee inspector coming in. She's coming to do a survey on my hives. I'm participating in the National Honeybee Survey, which I did that 3 years ago, which is really, main thing is she don't wash a queen. She takes live bees. She takes a wash, where they do a alcohol wash bees. What else does she do? She takes and knocks open brood out of the hive onto a pan, and then she scoops all that up and puts it in some kind of a, test tube or whatever. Sends all that stuff to the Maryland Bee Lab, and they do all the testing. And then probably maybe 4 or 5 months later, I get a written report about viruses, about mite loads. They count how many bees they took. About an average of about 1,100 bees is what they take out. And that was 3 years ago. My mite load. Now this was in October, after April bar, after Formic Pro, and I had a mite load of a 0.2, which 1.0 is acceptable. So I was less than what what the recommendations were, which is great. It showed me that my mite program worked. and or at least for the most part. And and Ryan, he marks only marks are from Queens. The only ones marked are the ones from he buys. Okay, and Ryan doesn't mark them either, and he's got 50 hives or so. He's sideliner slash commercial. But anyway, they're going to do that. And that was the only time I wish that I had marked queens because they're easier to see. A
I
lot of mine are carnies. A lot of them are darkish looking, and they're like they got cloaking devices. They had them before the Cleons did. Yeah,
yeah, the cloaking devices.
yeah.
I'm just curious to see if I catch a swarm, if it's a marked queen.
Mhm. I don't know. Um, Only thing I've learned so far this year is you got to have fresh queens in your hives if you want great hives. The
Yeah,
queen, the queen. That the understanding of queens is most people don't most people don't have um, an understanding why you have young fresh queens, and things. When I started out, they used to take and um, talk bad about the commercial beekeeper. Why they were doing this and they were doing that, and that's terrible, and this was this and that, and blah blah blah.
yep,
And I'm like, yeah, you're an outsider that don't know diddly squat about beekeeping because this guy's been at it for 40 or 50 years. He's making a living at it. He's got to have things that are up and running right.
yeah.
And, and now you don't hear quite that bad mouthing about commercial guys anymore.
You
I
know,
think people,
there's something to be said about the people who do regimented treatments across multiple yards,
Mhm.
depending on whatever is going on in the hives, right? So, say June is harvest time, June, July, and then August 1st is Apgar treatment, depending on whatever is going on. And this is in our area, Charlie, the Northeast. But you have to treat all the hives at the same time with the same treatment. If that's what the commercial guys are doing, right? So, and then you have these one-offs that your hives are not really responding. One of them is not doing as well as the others. This one lost a queen, so then you got to treat them individually. But I think the guys that are successful are the ones that are blanket treating, and they're treating everything the same. Does that make
uh,
sense?
Ryan wants to know whether goldenrod's starting up in New Jersey. Another a couple other things here.
Not,
I was reading.
not yet. It's just starting.
Brian C marks all his queens and hasn't had any issues yet. Oh, that's great, Brian.
I'm wondering too if it's the type of pin because the time that I was having a problem with the queen marking them and leaving them, throwing them right back in wet. I was using that new style pin that came out. Uh, I think it was
Yep.
like 2 or 3 years ago.
is that the MP5? Is Peter Morris is talking about using MP5 that Benny suggests? I,
Yes.
pre- I
Yeah,
guess that.
Bob was selling them on his website.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
I bought some and I ended up not liking the tip, the way the tip does after it gets used a little bit. So I did away with them. But I did notice that when you mark them and you put them right back in with that marker, they will all attack around the back trying to get that stuff off. Not attacking her, but just attacking the spot.
Yep.
And
Yes.
I
now.
went back to the past hands, and if you set her aside for 5 minutes, let them dry, you put her back in, they act like nothing happened. But you use that other pin, and if it's a little wet, they interested in it. They're gonna come smell her and fool all with her. But if you let it dry, you put her back on the frame, and she just walks about her business.
Yeah. Brian from Flower Street, he marks his queens with competitive advantage pins. I guess that's the same one that Benny uses. Is that right, Brian? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And then Ryan at Peabody, some of the breeder guys use nail polish. Yeah, you're right. I've seen the boys down in Georgia do that. And
You know
all
what,
that.
Charlie? I started using the model paint. You know,
Yeah, Michael Palmer uses that.
Yeah, Palmer used that, and then I got away from that, and I went with Bob Binley's paint, and I'm wondering if I'm going to go back to the model paint and try that with a little piece of Timothy grass. You know, it's so easy.
Here, Brian says Tennessee State inspector uses tester enamel model paint and the end of a wooden matchstick.
Yep.
You know,
or you could just grab a piece of grass when you're out there in the field. And
or well, some of them use a piece of Timothy, but that's hard to find sometimes.
yeah, yeah, I'm forgetting.
And then
we're regional.
Ryan says quick dry nail polish and all that.
That might be tough though, wouldn't it be? Nail polish, and like that's was it acetylene or wouldn't that burn the bee?
What's that?
Nail polish.
Nail polish.
Wouldn't that burn the bee?
I don't know. And then Brian was saying that it's the same as Bob Benny's and all. He keeps them in until they dry.
Oh, it's the same alcohol. Okay,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, Strut and Buck says acetone.
Acetone, yes. Okay, I don't do that, so I don't know.
I don't either. Strut and Buck, what's your name? So I can write it down.
Brad, where are you at?
Central Louisiana.
Louisiana, okay. I got a little bit behind or ahead, depends on how you're looking at on the seasons.
Wait, what's that again?
I'm just trying to compare your season to my season.
Where are you from? Oh, New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Yeah,
he's up in New Jersey.
New Jersey. Jersey.
Yeah, you up on the East Shore, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you, Carl.
You eat lobsters like we eat crawfish?
I wish we have blue crab like you had crawfish.
Oh, blue crab. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I always wanted to go.
I see those videos with what is it? What's that? Crayfish or whatever? Crawdads or whatever they are.
Crawfish.
Yeah, crawfish. And are they like out in the ocean there, or is that in the mud stuff that I heard?
No, that's in the mud. That freshwater. All freshwater.
Okay. What do you actually sift it out of the mud? Those things?
No, when we used to catch them ourselves, you just use some bait with a net, and they crawl into the net, and you can either you mostly fish them on the bottom, but yeah, they hibernate in the mud when the ponds are dry. Like nowadays, it's mostly in rice. The ones you're going to buy now come out of rice fields, and
see you, Tom.
They drain the fields, and the crawfish bury themselves, and they usually bury themselves. And
is it like a little lobster or something with a little pinchers?
Yeah, it's a miniature lobster is all it is.
It is a small lobster.
Okay,
that's what Louisiana was built on.
Yeah. Yeah. Mud bugs.
Right? When you talk about crawfish season, man, that's like, the biggest holiday of the year, almost besides Christmas.
That's like lobster season down in Florida.
Yeah, I mean.
All right. I mean, and what do? Boil them or steam them?
Like you boil them like you do shrimp, something like that, with seasonings and different things you like. Depends on how you like. If you like season them, or like you boil crawfish, you like different kind of seasonings, spicy or not.
Crawfish boil.
Yeah, we
I don't know. I mean, like down south, they boil crabs, and up here in Maryland, we steam them.
we don't know
And
why y'all do
I'm not a
that.
crab picker. I'll just give me a crab cake and I'll eat it.
That's the difference
I'm not
between Cajuns and Yankees.
Yeah,
We
What's that?
like our seasoning in our food. Y'all like your seasoning on your food. See, they'll pull that steamed crab out and then sprinkle a bunch of seasoning on the shell. Well, it don't absorb into the meat. We gotta have it in the meat.
Oh my God, I'm dying over
Now,
here.
Carl
we
says
start
she lots of
seasoning in the
seasoning, and then
water.
you suck the juice out of their heads.
Brad, what
Tell
did you say the difference between Yankees and what?
And Cajuns.
And Cajuns. I
You say you suck the juice out of their heads? You don't have meat in there?
Oh, you rip it apart.
Yeah, what you do, we even got t-shirts that say head suckers.
That can mean a couple different things.
Yeah, but there's a picture of a big crawfish on it. Yeah, if you're in Louisiana, you're gonna see a true crawfish eater. He's gonna pinch that tail off, and while he has that tail, he's gonna take his finger, he's gonna pass it in that hollow head, scoop out the fat, eat it, and then he's gonna peel the tail and eat the tail off. If he don't stick his finger in the hollow head and pull out that fat, he ain't no Cajun. He just watch videos on how to eat crawfish.
He's a pretend.
Well, what is it? I mean, what's it taste like?
It's just right. If the crawfish are healthy and they've been eating good, when you're gonna pull off that tail, at the end of the tail, there's gonna be a lump of fat. It's gonna be a yellow fat. I don't know if you ever seen yellow crabs.
Yeah, they've had that fat on the what do you call
Yeah,
it?
when you crack open a crab,
You don't eat that stuff.
well, the fat you do, but not the crabs is totally different. But on a crawfish, there's a lump of fat inside that head that stays on the end of that was on the end of the tail.
Yeah.
If you break off the tail good, it'll come with the tail. But if you break it off, sometimes it stays in the head. So you gotta either spoon it out with your finger or suck it out.
You know, Brad, that same fat you're talking about is in a lobster.
Oh,
It's the
really?
same-
Well, yeah.
It's right in the head, right here.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, it's so delicious.
Oh, yeah. That's the butter of the tail. If you don't eat the fat that came with the end of the tail, you're missing the best part.
Yeah. A lot of people rip the head off and they throw it in the garbage. And like, there's a big piece of meat in there.
When we would ball a lot of crawfish, because I used to catch a lot too, and I would go in the river and we'd catch those really big ones, and I would just when I was young, I used to it was all about speed eating because you had so many crawfish to eat, you didn't worry about too much about the fat. My mother-in-law, when she would see me take a super big crawfish and I would just break off the tail and throw the head down, she would grab that head and suck out that fat.
Right there on the spot.
Yeah, she would say, "Don't waste that."
That's like us clamming up here. You know, like we just go clamming, suck the clams right out of the water, like throw them back in, and it's great, man.
Oh, we used to put all kind of stuff. Like you would start off your water, you get your water hot, then you would throw your seasonings in there, your crab ball or whatnot, crawfish ball in there. You put lemons, you put onions, you put potatoes, sausage, mushrooms. My wife likes mushrooms that are boiled in the crawfish seasoning. And the last thing you would put in was the crawfish after your potatoes and stuff were done, because crawfish actually take that long to cook. It's mostly like bring to a boil and then you shut them off and you let all that, because crawfish will float. They have so much air inside their shells. Well, you got to shut the fire off and let that seasoning of that water soak back into that shell of that crawfish, and they'll settle down in that water. And once you let them soak for about 15, 20 minutes, then they're done. I cannot stand when someone takes boiled crawfish out, throws the ashes and sprinkles the seasoning on top. You might as well just sprinkle the seasoning in your mouth. That's all you can do.
Well, I guess we better get back on beekeeping.
Yeah. Sorry, we got sidetracked, man. So, hey, Charlie, I got a question for you. So,
Mhm.
I might have joined in late, and I apologize about that. But
Fine.
are you guys and the audience, are you seeing your numbers starting to dwindle now? Like
Yeah.
the strong hive or the weak hives, they're starting to fade out.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm with you, Darren.
All you inland people haven't lived.
Well, anyway, I don't think so. I went and drove by my highs, especially when the cool spell was this first of this week, and you could see some of those really strong highs. They're hanging down from the bottom frames
Yeah.
into the bottom,
Okay.
board, and you can see them right there at the front edge. Now there are other ones you think they're completely no bees at all, but then I opened up like one of the nukes, that looked kind of, didn't look quite right. And you open them up, and they're all up in there. They're all huddled up and all that kind of stuff.
But this is the time of the year where they do shrink down a little bit.
Yeah.
Although y'all have a flow pretty much. Well, no, your flow is over, huh, Charlie?
Yeah, flows over with.
Because
Yeah.
some.
Pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, I do know I was parked under a tree a couple weeks ago, and the spotter lanternflies are around me. Where I seen my windshield was covered with their excrement, which is like dried honey, you might say, or nectar
Like
and all
Cayman
that.
Reynolds said today at the meeting, he said he moved a lot of his bees to Michigan. He says like right now that flow is on. He's getting honey in his hives now. You know,
Michigan.
Well, how
he
many? I hear him say that, but I'm like, how many hives has he got? He's moving up there. I mean, does he even have the capabilities of doing that?
Yeah.
I
yeah
wonder. I kind
he
of wonder about that. I mean, that old Chevrolet truck he's got, that's the same one I got, and they ain't one of them trucks that
he
you're bucking up
he
the
looks
interstate very much.
he looks like he might have hauled 30 to 40 hives, something like it's not his whole. I think he said he's doing it like to try it out, like
Mhm.
to have another source of nectar or whatnot to raise more honey, because he did a video on his hives, and he has a couple of
It's
supers
9
on them,
o'clock.
and they're filling them up. So I mean, he's going to get another harvest up there. So it's like kind of explains like, because they have a very short season in Tennessee according to him. It's even much shorter than ours, because of the vegetation that they have there. So he says that's another way of him making income. After his bees finish up in Tennessee, he can move them
Yeah.
up north.
I would think it would be the opposite. I think that Wisconsin's more north, and um, that they would be, shutting down up there, and there'd be more flow down in the deep south where it's warmer, like where
But
you're at.
from what I'm understanding, though,
I
like
guess
even in Canada and like where Brad and all that, there's no dirt area. The
no,
season is so short; it starts and then it ends at winter.
but
So it's still going on. You know, the
and they get those acres and acres, miles and miles of
farmland and stuff.
of blooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's like Doug Longman from Longman Acres up there in West Texas. He put a video out for me where he's sitting on the side of the road and he shoots on one side of the road, which is all canola, swings the camera around, it's canola over here. So there's like 25,000 acres of canola out there for,
Yeah.
all that to do. And then if you listen to Ian was talking about the guy who planted some late canola fields, I think it was coming in, which was beneficial to him. Let me let me research something right quick. I want to tell you.
Yeah. Charlie, where are you located at? While you're looking that up?
I'm in Maryland.
All right, never mind. I'll ask you offline. I didn't know how many miles we are separated.
Where about you at up there in New Jersey?
I'm close to Long Beach Island, a little bit north of Atlantic City. I'm in the Pine Barrens, so it's a tough area. But I don't think we're too much weather difference between
Right.
us.
Not really. Um, but Ian talked about, oh, the guy over there planted a half section or a quarter section. A half section is 320 acres, and a section, which is a square mile, that's where even out in the Midwest of the United States, they don't talk how many acres you got, how many sections you got. And a section is 640 acres, you
Holy
know.
crap!
Yeah. Oh, I got, or quarters, a quarter of a section, which a quarter of 640.
That's why they
Like,
need all those bees.
yeah, but they're talking about, oh, he planted a quarter section. So a quarter of 320 is what? 150, 160 acres. So
Yeah,
a
quarter.
farm around here, an average size farm, is 160 acres.
Yeah,
And they're talking about a field that's 160 acres, or a field that is a quarter section of field, which is 360 acres, which is another, well, here on the East Coast would be a pretty good size farm. I mean, most farms are, some of the bigger farms are 500 or 600 acres.
yeah,
But, out west, they're talking 2 or 3 thousand acres. Of course, depends on out there, they have to do things differently because of rainwater and things of that nature. But, and all that. So, I mean, Brad's talking about 25,000 acre, or 25,000 acres of canola around. As far as the horizon, there's canola fields. And
Mhm.
that's why they get 250 pounds per hive of canola honey and stuff like that. That's why Ian gets what he gets and stuff and all.
That's
So,
a. I heard that's a fast crystallizing honey.
oh, it is.
oh,
That's why if you notice Ian and them, they'll get in there and he'll take a measurement uh, with a refractometer, and it's not capped yet because it will crystallize in the comb. So he'll have a comb there, a frame, and it might have a strip of capping across the top. It's maybe, let's say, a third of it is capped and 2/3 is uncapped. If it gets close to, let's say, 18%, something like that, I think. I'm
Mhm.
not sure about the percentages, what he goes for. 17 to 18, something like that. They're harvesting that honey because they know it's going to crystallize on them. And the same thing with, like he had that one year. He came back the next morning, and in the auger system underneath of his uncapping machine, we lost him. Um, it it locked that auger up. He had to get it. He had to break it so the auger would start to spin so they could get the darn nectar out of there and
Dang,
stuff
that's
like that.
something.
I mean, that's how bad that stuff crystallizes.
From what I can tell from his videos, they pretty much when they send it off to the packer, it's all how you call that, where they heat treat it and stuff, so it doesn't crystallize. It's not really like sold as that bee made is not really sold as like pure raw honey.
See there in Minnesota, Russ says, 1,000 acres, you're a hobbyist. Several big farms is 20 to 30,000 acres.
yeah. So how many hives do you need for 1,000 acres?
Depends on what's in that. You mean as far as what, maybe if
For,
it's a canola field or something?
for that guy, the one who just commented, 1,000 acres. How many? The
He
answer?
was just saying the size of the farms. Out there, 1,000 acres is not a big deal, but
Oh my God.
it's what you can grow on that 1,000 acres.
Yeah.
It's like here on the East Coast, our let's say corn, bushels of corn per acre are probably higher than the bushels of acre out there because of, let's say, rain
Yeah,
problems. Maybe they were using irrigation. They might have to use irrigation out there, which is
hey,
a big thing.
Charlie, you guys have a lot of soybean.
Oh yeah, corn and soybeans, like everything else. That's the main
Yeah,
thing.
so it's corn and soybean, right? Either or other, right? So while the soybean is growing, is flowering, is a very, very, very good pollinating crop, right? So
Mhm.
after it's done, is there any use for it after that? For the bees, for the
For the
bees.
Well, I was reading the thing. What Run that by me again? I'm sorry.
So soybean, while it's
Yeah.
blooming, is a very great pollination source, right, for the bees. But
Maybe.
after
Depends.
it's
Like we talked about it before. You get a purple bloom or white bloom, and you have a nectar source there, possibly.
but after it's
I've had
done, that's
I've
it.
had in the back of this field behind me up there, I've had corn and soybeans up there for 10 or 15 years, back and forth, and I never seen any advantaged. I mean, basically corn and soybeans is more of a desert for the bees than anything else, you know.
Soybean is you think is a desert?
Well, if you have white bloom soybean, from what I'm gathering here just recently in information, the bees don't get anything out of that.
That's what I'm wondering.
And then but then I've also heard if there's a purple bloom on a certain type of soybean plant, that the bees possibly get a nectar source out of that and all
Oh,
that, but I'm not really sure
hmm.
and all
Yeah,
that.
soybean is huge by us.
Everything,
That's
sweet
butter. That's
corn,
isn't that
peas.
isn't that butterbean, honey? Soybean is butterbean.
I don't know. See, let's see.
I thought butterbean honey is soybean.
I don't know. Sugar beets. I don't know. I mean, I don't know anything about sugar beets or these other things.
Because we have honey that comes up to New Jersey, that's from Maryland, and it's labeled butterbean, and it comes from the soybean plant.
Okay.
Well, Charlie, I'm gonna have to cut on out, so I'll catch y'all again later.
All right, bro. Good. I'm glad that you came on
Glad.
and helped me out and everything. This is
Cheers,
interesting here.
brother.
Y'all take care.
Soybeans always had purple or white flowers. It doesn't mean it's doesn't have any traits. Both color flowers have traits.
Huh?
I don't know whether that means whether they have any nectar source in it or not. I'm not really sure. Um, and all that, but butter beans or table beans. I don't know. I've never knew. I have always asked the
Butter
question
beans or table beans?
where those type of beans, like, all right, like pork and beans out of a can. What plant do you grow in your garden to get that same bean? I've never known. I don't know. I
Butter
have no
beans or
idea.
table beans? Somebody asked if I had a YouTube channel. I don't have a YouTube channel. Sorry.
No, but he does have a Facebook and he does post a few videos on Facebook.
Yeah,
You do a lot of pollination,
I
watermelons and whatever else.
I I do pollination on a pretty big farm that does. It starts in April with apples, pears, then moves to strawberries. Then there's a little bit of break, and then it goes to melons, which is watermelon, cantaloupe, and then goes to all of the other squashes. Corn is self-pollinating, and then you got pumpkins, and that's a full year.
And
Yeah, but Charlie, you know what? The I know Bob was talking about this a while ago, and he had a farm across the street from him. If anybody has availability for strawberries. It's the lightest, well, not the lightest, but it's really, really light sweet honey.
Well, see, Alex up in let's see, where does he live? In Quebec, and he moved his hives to a strawberry farm.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, I didn't. Hey, Carl, um, I didn't know whether or not he would get any kind of nectar source out of that. I said, I've never really, there's not that many strawberry farms around here at all.
Yeah.
There isn't any, period, zero.
Yep.
And so anyway, um, he got a lot of honey out of, I mean, he probably had a 50-acre field there.
Yeah.
These bees produced a lot of light honey.
Yep.
And what does it taste like? We were discussing that here Tuesday night, I guess it was.
Yeah, I didn't join you guys on Tuesday, but it's a fruity flavor. It don't taste like strawberries, obviously, because everyone says like, oh, strawberry honey tastes like strawberries, right? No, it doesn't. But it's very, very light honey, and
It's almost water white.
it's not as white as what is that?
Locust.
Locust. Yeah, yes. It's not black locust white.
And
But
I have a friend of mine that has locust trees right next to his hives,
yeah,
all around him. And he got this honey that is murky water white.
it's
looks
it's like
almost
water.
like
Water,
almost
right?
looks like sure water.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And so anyway, some guy said, "What is this? Sugar water?" And he says, "No, it's honey." And
Yeah.
hey,
Yep.
Doug. And all right, and there, Doug. I think that's the fellow that's going to tell a tale. Soybeans have no benefit whatsoever. They would starve on it. That's what
Oh
I've
man.
always, that's what I've always said. What Doug
Yeah,
taught.
that's what I thought too.
But anyway, Harry was selling it, and he says, "No, it's He said, I'm not sure at the time what it was, but I think we figured it out. It was locust, but it was pure locust honey. Now with me, I over here with the trees behind me there, down alongside the road, there's locust trees, and of course there's a woods across the road which has a bunch of poplar trees.
Yeah.
And, they more or less they kind of coincide with each other about in the bloom. It used to be locust bloom for 2 weeks, let's say, and then poplars would bloom. Well, now they kind of crossed over a little bit. And like this year, my locust kind of got washed out for the most
It's
part.
so yeah,
And
the locust bloom is such a narrow window, right? Depending on how much rain you get. If you get a hard rain, it knocks all those flowers off the tree and you're done.
yeah. But so now this year is, and everybody around me has talked about it. Um, the honey is darker this year, this
Yes,
season.
I believe
And
that.
I think it's a little bit more heavier on the poplar side than it is on the locust side. Usually locust is kind of a light straw yellow for me. And
Yeah.
then where it's
Yep.
predominant locust. And then this year, I think it's more predominant poplar, which is more of a ruby. If you look it up in the light, it's sort of like a ruby red.
Yeah.
Sort of kind of looks like that.
We have such a line of weather, right, in New Jersey because of the Pine Barrens, right? I keep saying the Pine Barrens, right? But it is actual a weather effect on rain. So right north of the Pine Barrens, which I'm not in, I'm in the Pine Barrens, they get all the rain. And the black locust that blooms in 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 May is unbelievable. Like the whole state is covered and I don't benefit from that. So I'm like kind of like like this, you know, like. So I don't get any of that benefit from the black locust unless my neighbors are planting it. And so
All
I
right,
get
so I'm
a little
looking
bit.
at you're kind of like due east of Philadelphia.
Correct. Yeah, I'm in Ocean County. Wharton State Forest is pretty
It
much
says
where
here close to Pemberton Township.
Long Beach Island is pretty much where I'm at. Yeah,
I don't see that Long Beach Island.
it's on the coast. It's on a very Manahawkin. Very
Oh, Long Beach. You're up there on the right up to
Long
the
Beach.
northern end.
No, Long Beach Island. Long
Oh,
Beach Island.
beach. You're on an island.
No, I'm on the inland, but that's what the marker
Oh,
is.
I see the Long Beach Island now. You're north of.
Manahawkin. That's where. That's where. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So the Pine Barrens. We're right on the edge of the Pine Barrens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But so anyway, I was looking at that.
Yeah. So what? Anybody else got anything going on?
Rodney's got to go. Rodney Middleton's got to go. All right. Good night, Rodney.
Charlie, you done treating with Apicard, or did you do that?
I did not do Apricot this year. It's just too hot.
Okay.
And I've got April Bar in next Saturday on the 31st with the week 6. And I'll be taking it out. And then the next treatment will be Formic Pro.
Okay.
And then after I take that out,
When do you do Formic Pro?
when I do it, September,
Okay.
I'll put 2 strips in. I will,
And a 10-day?
no, it's 14 days, 2 weeks, 2 week, is 2 weeks is what it's the strong dose.
Yeah. All
But
right.
I make it sure that it's between 75 and 80 degrees. It says the high end is 85. I like it 80 and below. I like it 80 and below with low humidity. And last year I got lucky where I had a 2-week period of cool weather around 75 degrees. So I went right out there, threw April Bar strips on, double strips, 2 pads, on each hive. And I also put them on my nukes, which are 5/5. And my nukes are built with screen bottom boards, just like a normal hive. They just are miniaturized. So I open up all the entrances wide open, which most of them are all open up there now. And nukes are the same way. And then I put in chloroplast to close up hey, Mark. And Mark delivered 1,200 pounds of honey tomorrow. Man,
Nice.
that's great. But don't overdo it too much, Mark.
1,200 pounds. That's nice.
Man, that's what I
just know my back holds up. Yeah.
Yeah, So anyway, I'll put the chloroplast in, open, make sure that the entrance is wide open. The 10 frame production hives, the satchel holds 2 pads, put it across the top of the bars, and then close them up for 14 days. I don't see too much bearding or anything like that especially when it's, good weather and all that kind of stuff. And all that. And I'm done with that. And then this year I bought some Appy tablets at the Navi. I'm going to throw those into the hive, close it all up, put a feeder on, start feeding. Usually takes me till around the 15th of October and get it all fed up. Even though there's a top super full of honey, they still take sugar water, quite a bit. I will be using Apis Biologic.
Yep.
And all that kind of stuff. That definitely works. Now, I did have issues, of course, like I say, it was queen issues. It wasn't Apis's problem, it wasn't the fact that it didn't work and and that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm gonna do that. That's my game plan. That's what I've been doing for years. And then I'll do some people say the eight tabs will take care of the row mites through the winter. They probably will. I'm going to go ahead and vaporize at least once or twice a month if the weather's correct.
Yep, same here.
If it's 45 degrees, I'll hit them every 2 weeks.
It
Some
doesn't
people,
hurt.
no, some people say maybe I overtreat. I had one local guy say that. I says, well, the amount of hives that I have, or the success part of it, I have a higher success rate than what he has had in the
Yeah.
past. So I say this, hit them, if I got appy tabs in there, I'll hit them maybe, hey Carl,
Hey,
I'll hit them,
Carl.
I'll hit them at least once a month with the vapor and let the appy tabs, kind of take care of them the rest of the time maybe.
Yeah, I started in the vapor in December. I'm just finishing Apigard for 4 weeks, and the mites looks good, but
And
the
you
queen
you
shut
put
down.
25 grams in, right? And the weather was what, 90 plus?
No, I put 50. I
How
put
much?
I put 50 and 50, or 50 milligrams and 50 milligrams.
50. So you put a
50.
full you put 50 full dose in there for 2
I put
weeks and then
a full dose, yeah, on a double deep, on a double deep.
on a
Yeah.
double deep, and you didn't run them out of the hive.
Didn't run them out of the hive. Nope, no. And I came back, and actually, I came back 5 days later, and it was gone.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Why are they getting rid of this so fast?
Well, they'll do that, but it's the vapor that kind of still stays there that takes care of the situation.
Yeah. So I had to wait a couple days because it's supposed to be across a brood cycle, right? That's the purpose of the treatment. So then I did a second treatment, and they did it again in another 5 days. It was gone in a few days. So, but I'm so glad that that's done, and now I can start feeding. I can start getting the hives back together in order, because winter's coming quick.
Yeah. Well, Carl, what's happening? Obviously, you didn't make it to the house. I was
no.
disappointed in that.
Yeah,
I
I ended
know,
up
Carl.
traveling almost. Hey, what's up, Jack? I ended up traveling almost back home that day.
Really.
Yeah, it was a wasted day completely. So
Hmm.
you only get 7 days vacation, and I wasted one of them, but it wasn't a complete waste. So the old man wanted to get home, so he got home. So that's what matters. So, but
That's good stuff.
yep, got to do what you got to do. So
What's going on in your
you're getting ready
yards?
for winter. I'm putting honey supers back on.
Really.
Yep. Goldenrod's starting to pick up around here and that, and I'm starting to work into some winter configuration, but rotating some boxes back into place and getting the deeps down bottom. And I had about 10 hives I had to put supers on because they're packed out, and some of those queens that I got from Ed are really panning out. I went into one, I had 6.5 sheets of solid brood in them. So I had to add super to that just to give them room because they're blowing up already. So mine are still brooding up. I don't know what's going on, but I can tell you this much. There's a lot of drones in my hives and a lot of drone brood in my hives yet.
Well,
So,
now, what did you said you put something on them, you say? From where?
I just I got some of those queens about 6 weeks ago from Ed Sharp.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I requeened 10 hives, and those 10 hives that I requeened, all 10 queens took. And 9 of them are really productive. The one I'm questioning the queen if she's a bad queen or not, but I mean 9 out of 10. Even right now, all 10 are still going. 9 of them are slabbing up. The 10th one is a little questionable, but it just might be slow start. It might be the hive I put it in. It wasn't a real strong hive, and there isn't a ton of feed in it. And I didn't get to feed as much as I would like to in July. After our flow went away, and I had some stuff go on personally that I lost like 3 weeks of time. So I actually had my first time ever. I actually had a hive starve out on me, and it was my fault because I had some stuff going on, and between the two of us, we could not get out to that bee yard with what was going on. There was more important things, and we found out today we did lose one hive, but 1 out of 65 isn't bad when you have a situation with 3 weeks where we literally could not get into the hives.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's fine. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I was actually impressed. I got in the hives when I got home last Saturday because that all took place, and fortunately it panned out. And the next day we were going on vacation, and I was in the hives last Saturday. When I got home, I got into some of the hives that I had some question marks on, and it's a good thing I did because I think there was 2 or 3 that may have starved out, but I robbed a frame of honey from this one and that one. I just missed one that, just from observation, looking for an hour or so at the flow in and out of the hives and that. The ones I was concerned with, I checked, and I missed one. So that isn't bad when you, in my opinion, neglect the bees.
well, the thing of it is, you don't hear it's like the commercial guys when you got 150 plus hives or more.
Yeah,
they there's a percentage of lossage or swarmage or something there.
Yeah.
It's more of a it's more of a numbers thing. It's like, okay, well,
yeah,
and it's like me, and it's like, okay, let's save this little rip off the side of this board. Somebody, and I'll save certain sizes. And you'll save and save and save, and the pile gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's like, okay, it's time just to cut it up for firewood and get rid of it. Sometimes it pans out where your off falls do go back out, and you can get some money off of them and stuff like that. And it's like the bees, you got a certain, you got the 60 plus hives, and you can only do so much so quick, so often, and because you got a day job. So you gotta say, okay, I might have a 2% mishap rating here, something like that.
yeah.
So that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and we're looking. This weekend's gonna be the first weekend in 5 weekends that we could actually take and spend some time. And thank goodness it looks like we have some good weather too. And because we're behind on our mite checks, which should have been done a few weeks ago, and we didn't even get treatment on yet, which we usually get on right in mid July. So we're done with it going in August because we have a decent goldenrod ragweed flow here in September. So we're behind, but you know what? If it happens, it happened for a reason, and and we'll recover from it. We will.
Well, I mean,
we'll recover.
it's like, the situation is, you sound like me or the rest of the guys here. You got a schedule, you got a plan. You got a mite treatment plan that you try to adhere to. Your flows, and when to put supers on. Like I don't have a fall flow, so you do.
Yeah.
And all right, so you're gathering on that, and then you're trying to get treatments in between flows and inspections and all that, and it's hard to juggle. Sometimes you just can't get it all done.
Oh yeah.
And so it's just the way it is.
That's what's nice about talking to each other. Like we're all facing the same problems, just at different times. Like maybe we might be 3 weeks separated from each other, but we're all going through the same thing, right? And I'm gaining I'm gaining a lot of equipment, not on purpose, but next year in the spring, I'm hoping that it's going to benefit me. So
Yeah, well, I built up a lot of equipment this year. I mean, I really built out a lot of frames and stuff, and I never thought that I'd be running out of equipment this year, but I'm pretty much at that point. So it's not a bad problem to have.
it's
Uh,
not a
it-
bad problem to have. No.
no, well, the bad part is you got to buy more then. So that's,
Yeah, yeah. But
so,
it's a good problem this year. Next year is going to be a bad problem.
yeah. Well, actually, life throws you curveballs, and it did for us, and it probably taught us a little bit of a lesson. You know what? Maybe for a little while we're going to stay around this number and work on production.
You know
You
what,
know?
Carl? I think the same exact thing. I'm like, you know what? Maybe somebody's telling me, that 50 hives is your cap, right?
Yeah.
For me, like, okay, maybe 51 is too much, but I'm not near there. I'm averaging between 35 ish, and I am overwhelmed. That's my capacity.
Yeah, that's I learned that, and like Mark says here, you're pushing it, and that's what it is. We're pushing it, but I'm
Yep.
learning too. I'm learning too because you know when you start out, they say have 2 hives, and then you go to 5, then you go to 10,
Yeah.
and if you want to go that route, and then you go to 30, and we came out of the winter, around 40 or a little less than 40, and we were going to look to try and get 80, but you know what? As the season went on and things happened, you started going, it's time to pull back just a little bit. When you're working full time and running a business and everything else, you gotta take care of business first, and be so that you don't want to neglect them, but at the same point, you learn as you go. So,
Hey, is it taboo to ask the question how much honey people harvest
I don't think it's
in
taboo.
here? Right?
I'm not even done processing my honey, to be honest with you.
Okay, so I got like 30 hives, right? And I only got 1,500 pounds is what I'm going to come out with in my area.
Yeah, and you did more than I did. I had
How many hives did you use that to get that?
I had like 28, I say, to get that. A couple failed. I should have did a lot more than that.
Yeah.
It fluctuates every year.
Yeah, like this year was all rain.
Yeah.
All rain.
Does anybody else want to say
It was a better
numbers?
year for me because it had just the right amount of rain, and it dried up at the right times where you didn't have a locust bloom that was washed out. Because usually I call it the locust rains. Soon as the darn locust starts to bloom, about 3 or 4 days is into its bloom, here comes 5 or 6 days of rain, and it's like,
Yeah, but I'm like, it's like all right, displaying your underwear, right? Does anybody else want to say what they're harvesting?
I'm about 1,100 now. When I'm done, I might be lucky enough to get 14.
Okay.
I did like 1,010 pounds this year.
Yeah.
Which was more than I did last year, and I had all those queen problems, which I'm ecstatic that the fact that I actually got 1,000 pounds.
That's awesome. So, yeah,
Roy there.
I'm happy with 1,000
pounds. Looked at half.
My living room is full of buckets. I don't have a honey house.
I don't either. I got a living full of buckets too.
Roy, I was looking at about 2,000. I was hoping for this year too, in the spring summer honey, and I did a lot of splitting and stuff like that, but we just got hammered with the rain.
I was shooting for 2,000,
and then we went from rain to 100 degrees.
Yeah, and I just had swarms, and I didn't, I couldn't do nothing about it. They were just they grew way too fast, too early.
I think Brian there, he got 1,000 pounds off of 10 hives. Now that's 100 pounds per hive. That's I don't know.
See, all right,
that's
good.
Great.
I'm glad I asked this question.
Brian's out in Western Tennessee.
2,800.
He's out, and Brian is
Colorado.
out there in Colorado.
1,000.
And what's kind of interesting, I find with that is, yes, he's got 75 hives, but from what I can gather from watching his videos, he's in a kind of a desert area. It's a very dry area, and I'm not really sure exactly what all the bees can actually forage on, whether it's some type of blooming desert plants or what.
So should it be like an average, right? If you're doing good and you're in a good spot, it should be 100 pounds per hive.
Yeah.
Around here, if I could, the average is 50.
50.
Now, when I do
That's,
my
that's
single
just
breed
one.
chamber,
That's
huh?
one. That's one medium. One super is like 50 pounds, right?
Nah,
No.
about 30, maybe 30.
Yeah, if you average 30 on a super, you're doing good.
So
If you get 40,
two
Yeah.
supers, 60 pounds.
Yeah.
Average.
I think I have about
So
20
I
downstairs.
average 3, sometimes 4 on there, mediums. And,
Yeah.
and I do the single brood chamber management thing where I'm bringing brood
Yep.
up and all this kind of stuff. And what I found is I can increase my production per hive. I averaged last year, I think, 80 pounds per hive, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Same. That single brood managed chamber. I did that this year, and my yield
I'm right here.
went through the roof.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is that when you do single brood chamber, you manipulate the bees where you're pushing the honey that's normally in the brood chamber. It's up in the honey supers where you want it. Is where I think a lot of where you're gaining from and all that stuff. But it's like I talked to some older beekeepers here where I live, where they used to have a lot of forage, and no problem, 150 pounds per hive, 40, 50 years ago,
Yeah.
but not anymore.
Yeah, I mean it's consistency. Now, I've also been constantly trying to grow. So where I had beginning of season 35, 40 hives, and now I'm at 65, I've been actually splitting and doing things and trying to build up frames and stuff like that to get ahead of the thing. So, I mean, I don't know exactly what I had for production spring going into summer, because a lot of them were splits and they were doing well, and I did get some honey off of some of them. But a lot of them that I had that were built up hives, I was taking frames and splitting and creating more hives and producing my own queens off of those hives. So, it's a big jump. And right now, I have it figured that out of the 65 hives, almost about 40 of them are less than 1-year-old queens. So next season, going into this fall, if we have a good flow, if we don't get rained out or something, you never know, we're going to get an early winter. So you have to watch every little thing and try and keep ahead of it. It's a shell game. It is, And
It is a shell game.
Yeah, the same thing with me going after the goldenrod. I mean, I watch it real close because as soon as I see something, if I have to, I pull it off and I slap on the Pro Suite because it's 3-1 and just start pounding them with feed because I got that short window there to get them built up for the wintertime. So,
Now, Kim there, she has 4 hives. She got 120, which comes out to 30 pounds per hive.
Yeah, Sid. You know what, guys? I'm happy if I get two mediums per hive, and I'm running 1.5s. So that's what I call, a deep queen extruder medium.
Yeah.
1.5 is what I call it. So if I get 2 supers of honey off there, that's 70, 30, 60 pounds.
Yeah. I think after understanding, I often wondered how people work the deep and the medium, but basically that medium is a brood chamber through the winter, and she'll come up and lay up in there.
Correct.
Of course, it's filled now, let's say for winter, and then they eat all that out. They move up and they get that top part filled up with brood come springtime.
Yep.
And then I understand now that, you shake all the bees out of that in the spring, put a queen excluder in, put a honey super on, and put that medium that was part of the brood chamber up on top. And
Yep.
then that sucks the bees up in there to take care of the brood and start putting
Yep.
honey in that honey super.
Yeah. I've been watching too many people who run singles and have
Yeah.
success with them. So
You know.
that's where I'm heading.
Yeah, well, your back also saves too.
Yeah. Kim there, she started out with one hive and split it 3 times. So Kim's doing quite well
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
Yeah. Hey, Carl, I'm sorry, but I know we talked before. Where are you at?
Northeast PA, Scranton, Wilkes-Barre area.
Oh, yeah, you're close. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Not far. No, but that little distance, our last 2 or 3 winters have been very mild, and we're due to get hammered here. So,
I know. I'm afraid.
it's due to come, and it's a couple of years now we've been spoiled, and I don't know if it's good or bad, because I'll be honest with you, I had to put feed on come late February because I was spot
Oh.
checking, and I put sugar bricks on and everything, and they were devouring them because there was a lot of days here where it was 55 degrees in January. And in February, we had a lot of days were in the 40s. Well, you know what? If it's 48 degrees, they're all trying to fly around on that.
Fly a little bit.
Yeah, they're out there burning energy. So
It
guess
was
what
like
they're doing?
a couple years ago, it was warm way into almost November, and it finally got cold. And I'm like, I was sweating it because I had put all this feed on. And I'm like, are they going to suck all this stuff up and eat it up because they're flying every day and not finding anything?
Yeah.
And all that
Yeah.
stuff.
I saw the same thing, and I mean, I can take care of my hives at my house a lot better than I can take care of them that are in the out yard because they're right outside, right? But if I use that as a gauge, so I have hives right outside my house, and I take care of them, and then I can see what's going on with them, and I can pretty much gauge what's going on my out yards. And see. So yeah, Carl, exactly what you're saying. They went through sugar bricks like fast last year
There's Paul giving us.
Yeah, I
because it was
saw that.
warm.
Yeah, I normally quit about 15 minutes ago on all that stuff, but people were coming in and I was watching the numbers climb a little bit here.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
Charlie.
Does Darren wants to know, do you overwinter in single brood configuration, Jack?
I
think you
do.
just said
I do. Yes, yes.
Were you saying,
where's
Jack,
that?
that you do a deep and a medium?
A
Is that what
deep
you're-
and a medium?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I did that on half my hives last year, and they worked out really well.
yeah. I'm trying to read the comments. The overwinter single brood chamber. Yeah, well, deep and a medium. Yep. That's what I'm doing. And usually in the springtime, they're all moved up, and that deep is, is half empty.
Mm-hmm. And Kim, she's been doing it for 8 years and all. So,
And that
she's,
medium belongs to the hive. Always, always, always.
Yeah.
now when you have any swarming problems where you're not being able to pull brood up out of that box that deep upstairs? How do you fix that?
For the medium, once
Well, like a single brood chamber, my modified method is where I'll pull cat brood out of that high, out of that deep, or let's say 2 mediums. And
Yeah.
I'll put in open comb so she continues to lay, make more bees. And then and then I bring those brood frames upstairs and I try to keep cycling them from top to bottom.
so
But I'm trying to, if I could alleviate that, too much work, type of thing.
Yeah, so in the springtime, after you come out of winter, she's going to start laying up. Usually they're going to be upstairs because it's warmer up there. So
Mhm.
she's going to start laying up in those, in the medium hive, in the medium box, right? So if you can find her, throw her downstairs, put the queen excluder on her, and then she's going to be downstairs, and then you'll be fine.
So she won't swarm after 2 or 3 months down there and by herself.
No, she won't, because they're going to be. It's going to be springtime, and they're going to be ready. They're going to be brooding already. She's going to lay down there right away.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's pretty,
You have to reset it. You have to reset the hive.
Well, what I did this year, Jack, and I because this last year was the first time I started going with the deep and the medium on top, going in the winter. What I did this year, going in the spring, once I started getting close to the flow, I actually took that medium and I inverted those boxes. And what I did was I allowed them to move up into the deep box more. And then I actually had that queen in the deep box. And then when it came into the flow, I switched it back.
It's really smart.
And I switched it back and I threw my queen excluder on the top and that. So I actually had a couple that I didn't get to during the flow. And that's one of the things. I think there was 2 of them today that we actually left where the medium was on the bottom. And they were brooding it up, actually. But Charlie was asking, too, about, the swarming issue. When I went and when I inverted them like that, it kind of, I don't know if it confused them or changed their attitude in that. If once I had that deep box and it was, say, 6-8 slabs full going into the nectar flow, well, that's where I took some of my splits. I would take a frame of brood from one, a frame of brood from another, and I would actually mark the frames. And the one that I found that had my best temperament and I felt was my best production is where I would mark that one. And when I had the queen cells on that, I'd let them make their own queen cells. Then I would cull all the other queen cells.
Wow.
And that's how I produced a lot of mine.
So
And
you go into winter with a medium and then a deep?
Yeah.
On purpose. That's your winter setup?
Yeah. So like now I was going through today and I'm way behind, but I was going through today and I found 2 of them that I never switched. So
Wow.
I switched them now and I'm going to let them start that. Then they can have that for going in the winter,
Holy crap.
So my hope is that medium, they'll put honey in that medium and she could lay in it. But at the same point, I'm going to put wet supers back on because they're not even dried yet, or I didn't even never got them. And I'm going to hope that they start filling that up with honey and I get the double dose there.
So have you removed your queen excluders yet?
I did remove them when I pulled my honey. On most of them, I removed my queen excluders when I pulled my honey, right when all things come crashing down the second week of July when I pulled most of my honey. Almost 80% of my hives, I removed the queen excluders.
Oh, wow. You do it at the same time.
Honey. Yeah. So now today when I started putting supers back on, then I will put the queen excluders back on and put a super back on top. That way I won't get brewed up in the supers now. Because they'll just go like a chimney right up that queen.
That's right. That's what I'm wondering. Like, so you remove the excluder, harvest, and when you put the box back on, you put the excluder back on?
Yep.
Okay. But you reverse the setup?
I reverse the setup when it's in the springtime. Because going in the spring, like you said, they come out of winter, that queen's up in that medium laying. When it starts, when it gets close to the flow, I'll take that medium and put it on the bottom.
I'm so confused, though. So in the winter time, though, it's a deep, medium configuration?
Yeah, the deep's on the bottom, the medium's on top.
And then in the springtime, you put the medium.
I'll flip it because in the springtime, she's laying in that medium.
When do you interrupt that?
I watch when I know the flow's coming, when I get close to the flow and I see that they're starting to fill up that whole medium with brood. I'll invert it then because I want the brood to go into the deep chamber.
Oh, wow. That's so smart, man.
So then if like this year, there was a couple of them where I started running out of supers and ended up pulling it up to the top, letting her have it back to start putting honey in. That way I have stores set going into the
so
no nectar flow.
So when you go out there and you're ripping these hives apart, the bees are just crazy, and you're putting the deep down below or the medium down below and the super on top, but you're ripping the whole hive apart. Bees are going crazy.
No, I didn't have much problems today. I was
No?
out there. I was out there at 6:30 tonight when I broke the one hive, and it had the shallow was on the bottom. And when I flipped them in that, because it was one of them that I missed. When I flipped it in that, I had no problem. I just hit them with smoke as I cracked the boxes and that. And I had already seen that I had a queen and she was brooding up, and I had eggs and larvae in that. So I found the queen in the deep box, which was on top. Well, all I did is split them, and I didn't mess with the bottom one. I wasn't concerned with the bottom. I just flipped them. It only took a minute to, put that deep back
Yeah.
on the bottom and switch
Okay,
it.
so you're putting the medium on the bottom now? And
No, I had two of them that I had to switch that I missed over the season. So, like
okay.
Charlie said, the best thing was Charlie said to me, I was always putting a lid on the ground and bending over too much in that. And Charlie told me, go get one of those little painter stands.
Yeah.
And
Go to Harbor Freight for 40 bucks and get yourself
You know what? Car-
it's 16 inches
love,
off the ground, and put
Yep.
your lid on top of that, and you don't bend over. You save your back like
Yeah.
crazy.
oh man, I love that idea of putting.
And you know what, Charlie?
medium-
When you're here at the house, I got like 40 hives here. When you get halfway through, you get a little tired. You just move that down. You sit your butt down, and you start. So you're not.
And you know what I did is like those hives right behind me. I'm going to sit there and I got to examine a hive,
Yeah.
and my back's a little bit sore. You bring that thing up there like a stool, and you sit on the end of it,
Yep.
and you can go through the hive, and you rest your back, and it's comfortable
So funny.
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah. That 5 minutes you're sitting there going through that hive or something, it gives you that little break.
It
And
does. It
relaxes
saves
you.
your back.
Yeah, and when it's 85, 90 degrees, it's nice to sit down for a couple of minutes,
Yeah.
So,
I got one of those little bathtub shower stools that I use too.
me and Charlie were talking about 2 months ago. He goes, don't you have one of these? And I said, never thought about it. I said, and I went out and I bought two of them. I got one here and one at the other yard. And I just get them at the end. I slip it between
And
two hives.
They weigh maybe 10 pounds at the most.
I don't even think they weigh that, to be honest with you.
I mean, they're a little over 4. I think they're right around 4 foot long.
It's
Yep.
a perfect size.
You can put 2 10 frame lids on them, and you can set let's say a honey box over here, and then if you got a brood box, you want to separate it, the queen and all that.
Yeah.
Works out great, and all that kind of stuff. But and then it's got folding legs, and I
You're
fold the
talking
legs.
about the
I happen to
folding-
have
the folding ladders that
yeah, and they got little things that you lock
Yeah.
in, and so a lot of times I don't even lock them because they're fine.
yeah.
And
one of them.
Painters.
It lives in my car. Yep, it lives in my truck. Yep.
yeah, it just it's used for drywalls, what it amounts to, or any carpentry type thing where you need to stand up on it and over top of your head or whatever, work
Yep.
off of it and stuff like that. Well, it's almost 3 hours worth of talk tonight, guys. We had a great chat, and we'll see you next time on Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. I might be on a Tuesday night. Who knows? I know that 33 Mile Beals was wanting to chat, so I jumped on there just past Tuesday around 2 o'clock tonight, or 9 o'clock in the evening here on the Eastern Shore. So we'll see everybody the next time around, and everybody here on the show can stay if you like. So until next time, we'll catch you all later.
Great to
night.
see you guys.
See ya.
Cheers.